Hello, everybody. Good morning. What's up? Hey, good morning. Thank you, sound people at the end. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the solar stage. My name is John. I'm going to be the MC today. So if you are hanging out at the solar stage, you're going to see a lot of me. I'm running out of things to talk about, so I don't know, I'll try and think of some stories, or I have like a heavy cube that I'm going to let people hold. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we've got a lot of amazing talks this morning as well. So coming up very, very shortly, we have Chantal Alberstadt talking about how to build a global beer brand with the help of Web3. At 10:25, we then have a panel on shifting crypto regulation, latest developments and trends. At 11:15, we have Reka Medvets, I'm going to check how to pronounce that, talking about community automations. At 11:40, we have a panel about the state of talent and work in Web3. At 12:30, we have Ian W. talking about creating a new front end for Web3 using AI and messaging. At 12:55, we have another panel on Web3 wallet evolution. Then we have a break for lunch, and then, well, actually way later on in the afternoon at 5:30, we start doing all of the hackathon stuff that they've got planned. So it's going to be an awesome day here at the solar stage, and we're kicking things off with a fantastic speaker to talk about how to build a global beer brand with the help of Web3. Please make her feel very, very welcome. Put your hands together for Chantal Alberstadt.
I see. Hi. So, some of you already know. Let's see where my presentation is. Let's go one back. So, hi, I'm Chantal. I'm one of the co-founders of Meta Society. I mean, I know some of you guys who from the other ones heard about us or maybe had a beer yesterday already. One of those? Okay, so some of you. That's good. We are actually like bridging walls. We connect Web 2 with Web 3 and bridging into a global beer brand. So what we're doing is we have an NFT project, which is at the end, to be honest, like a business model. So it's not another PFP project. We actually have a in real life product. What was super important to us to actually bring in real life value to people, and not to talk that down, but not just another picture and community and only events, but really building a really business model around a product and use Web3 and NFT like the space to build up a brand around that. So we have holders right now in 45 countries. That means our holders get 240 cans per year for free, like cans 60 a quarter. This is like the main utility in how you attract, or how we attracted most of the people who are our holders now. And also having like 2 events a year. One was in Germany at our brewery, as we are really owning in real life brewery in Bavaria, very big size, so we can brew a lot of beer, a lot of different kind of beers. We will have 4 brewers on site. Right now it's 3. We have right now 3 different kind of beers, but I come to that later. But what is the real big thing for us is the revenue share model. So we transform fans into partners. What I love about Web3, if you think about a business model, is that if you're in Web 2, you usually call people customers or clients, and then you try to make them from customers to fans of a brand. In Web 3, you really try to attract them from the beginning with something they're really passionate about. We did that with beer, so you skip the part where someone is just a customer and just buying. You really make them invest in your NFT project, so they're directly fans, and spread the word outside. But if we go from the stage from fans to like real partners, means brand ambassadors, we want to make them enable and help us spread the word international, to go, for example, to bars, to hotels, to other companies, also to just friends, and show them the beer and tell them you should list, for example, Meta Brew in a bar, which makes that the bar is ordering the beer, for example, just without an NFT, just regular in our shop, or give us a call and just say like, we want to have, I don't know, 5 kegs a week for our bar. And what we do is that our holders get 20% revenue share. So like an affiliate program, this is more like Web 2, but that helps us really to grow the brand international. As we have holders in 45 countries, that means we have holders in 45 countries who help us grow that beer brand. But because usually, think about how long it would take and how much money it would cost to actually build up a brand in 45 countries. So at the end, our holders are like brand ambassadors out there who spread the word and help us to internationalize this brand. So this is where this Web 2 to Web 3 comes from, because we have actually a product. It's already out there. Maybe I show you that first. The community is at the end, the fans, the key to build the brand international, to spread the word, but also give us really, really good market feedback. Because usually when you're building a brand, for example, in Web 2, you're launching a product and it's already totally done, and you hope they will like it, and if not, you start over. You need some month, or most of the time months, sometimes years, to actually get a really good product on the market, and you hope they like it. What we can do is we have a target group, so we can, for example, ship to our holders first a beer, see if they like it, what the feedback is, before we really produce it in a big time, in a big supply, to make other people buy it, for example. Or what I love about the space, I mean, I'm going to a lot of conferences, I'm talking to a lot of people. Doesn't matter if it's holders or also our community, which are sometimes not holders, but really like what we are doing, and just get inspired and ideas and see where the space where we connect and collaborate. And also the community help us sell. They are like our salespeople, but also give us really, really valuable feedback you usually wouldn't get so easy in Web 2 without maybe paying people or give them free beer or something. And if we get them free beer, they bought the NFT first. So as we started last year in April, which was in the beginning of, or kind of in the beginning of the bear market, or when we hit it pretty strong, we first thought we want to buy the brewery after the mint. And what we got as a feedback was that people asked us, okay, cool that you want to buy the brewery from the mint, but what's happening if you're just selling like 20 to 30% or something, or minting? So what we did is we bought actually the brewery pre-mint, so we went very bullish and bold into this project because we're really believing in it. And people were able to buy the beer pre-mint, like for example, 3 bottles, or after the bottle time it was cans, to actually try the beer, because it doesn't make any sense to build an international beer brand if the people don't like the beer. So we made them order it for a very, I think it was like €7, international shipping, already to the US for €7, and to Germany, so everywhere. People were able to buy it, try it. We made them like post a picture on Discord and on Twitter, and then they got the allow list spot. So if they tried it before and then had to do something to get the allow list spot, they're usually immediately faster connected to the brand than they would usually be. So what we did to, especially in a bear market, to gain trust, and because people were minting less, I mean, all of you know that probably, we shipped pre-mint, we bought a brewery pre-mint, we did our first in real life event, our own at the brewery, 3 days beer fest, 3 days free beer for everyone who was interested in the project, to really gather the community together, but also went to a lot of events, especially last year in Germany, to make the people see us, as the whole founding team is docs. I have like 7 co-founders who are very, very good in their expertise. So my background is design and marketing and branding. Meanwhile, also like Web3 and doing these kind of conferences. Yeah, so the people saw us, they could talk to us, they saw that we are actually already producing beer pre-mint, which was, I think at the end, one of the main reasons why we succeeded and we are still here and still building. And people really, I really have to say that we get so much great feedback, because people appreciate that we are still building and bring in real life value, especially in the totally bleeding market right now. So this here, if you try it later, if you have tried it, this is like a typical classic Bavarian brew, which is like helles Vollbier, like a lager, with 4.9% classic. But what we want to do is, our company is all about innovation. So using the Web3 space to grow international, using the blockchain, but also we want to do innovation beer. So one part is having a classic Bavarian brew, because why not? We can brew that, people love it, it's good to attract the first people. That one will stay, so we will not get rid of it. But what we want to do too, because the market in that for low alcohol and no alcohol beers is the most growing market right now in beer beverage or beverage in general, you see the green can where I'm standing in front of it, that one. This is our BPA Light, which is tasting very, I mean, I don't have it here, but if you have the chance to try it, really try it. It's just have 2.5%, but it's so good. It tastes almost like a classic Bavarian Pale Ale, just lower alcohol and a bit easier going, but it doesn't taste like water, what you a lot of time have when you're having like a low alcohol beer. And what we will have too, and we're working on that right now, is like the innovation line you see on the right side. So maybe we will not just have those two beers like the classic ones. There will be a bunch of more, just as an example. And as an example for an innovation line, we are right now working on a very, very, very good non-alcoholic brew, which has to taste, our goal is that it tastes like a full beer, like really a Bavarian brew, not what you sometimes get when you're drinking like 0.0% beer, and add also nutritions to it. So for example, in the middle you see the sleep brew. There are several people who drink a glass of wine or a beer before they want to go to sleep better, and we all know that if you're try to sleep and you drink alcohol before, the sleep quality is way, like, really getting worse. So we want to add some melatonin, for example, to a sleep brew. So non-alcohol beer, full in taste with melatonin. Or, for example, our energy brew. This is more like if you're, for example, out at a party, or we also work together already with some gaming companies, because we add like guarana and ginseng for staying awake, like an energy drink, but based on a beer. So non-alcoholic with energy, and try to do more different kind of innovation lines, because we see a market in there, but also here we can involve our community to ask, which beer are you the most interested in? And that will be the first we are brewing. And then we send them out, they can test it, and we get a really, really good feedback, because imagine holders of an NFT beer brand or a beer project, they're very critical with beer. So, what I'm kind of bullish on, what I really love, and I didn't have that on the, I didn't see that at the beginning when we started, that this could be like one big thing for us, is you see that here, this is not our regular can. Like our regular can is the black one, for example. This would be like the equivalent. We could really do, or we are doing white labeling, cool labeling, and we could do that for other NFT projects. B2B, like we're working together with big companies already who are ordering for their Summerfest or for whoever, for example, 5,000 cans, which is for a company way easier to sell 5,000 cans to a B2B client than, for example, to a private person. So not like other NFT projects are maybe doing it, like just selling the IP rights, for example, and we print it on. I really want to do, and I'm already talking to some projects right now, that we can bring value to other projects if we're seeing it in the Web3 space. So for example, if you're a holder of, I don't know, in like the bigger one is a stoned ape. If you're a holder of a stoned ape, you can go to our website and get token gated that can, and you can order for the same price like we sell usually your own beer, like from that community, for that community. For the other project, it's pretty cool because they can provide a real life product, like something they haven't had on the roadmap, for example, but really brings value to their project, for their holders, without them have to brew, have to can, have to ship, because we have all of that set. They can just use our online shop for it. So my goal in collaborations and corporations is always to bring value for everyone, for their holders, our company, their company, and we can do that for B2B, B2C, Web 2, Web 3. So this is actually a pretty big thing, and if you're going to a lot of conferences and sometimes side events, depending where, you will see us more often, because we were at a lot of conferences and side events this year already. So, to summarize it a bit, our business model is at the end, a part of it is NFT and Web3. This helps us to get market feedback, but also what I said at the beginning, to grow an international beer brand with the help of our holders. We have the classic beer distribution, so people can just order, it doesn't matter if it's B2B or B2C. We will have the innovation line where we really try to open new markets. As we have a really big brewery in Bavaria, like owning it, we can do brew as a service for other projects, B2B, but also like just a region around, because we can in-house, we can fill bottles in-house, we can label in-house, we can do everything in-house, what sometimes a lot of breweries also on-site can't, because they just brew or just someone has a filling machine, so we can move pretty fast. The white label story, what I just told you, we can also do private label that you don't see anything from MetaBrew. This year is like a collaboration can, so you see a bit of MetaBrew, you see a lot of branding from the conference here. And also, what I haven't mentioned, we will do a franchise model for tap rooms. And we already opened the first tap room, and one utility, for example, for all, our holders is that they not only get 240 cans of beer for free a year, but also can drink for free at our tap rooms. And for us, of course, it's better to, we don't have to sell the beer to our tap rooms. There's no middleman in between, so we make more margin. If we have our own tap rooms, it's easier to spread the word and provide another value for our holders. So, to summarize it, our big thing so far was we minted at the end of September, beginning of October last year. We closed the mint at the beginning of this year, I think it was February, March, because the floor price was stable. We didn't have to close the mint. So we made like 1.2 million with the mint during the bear market, what I think was okay. We have holders in 45 countries, means we already shipped to 45 countries. We opened our first tap rooms, and we are working together with a lot of projects already. And what, especially in the market conditions right now, what you can see what value this project has for our holders, if you see it from the NFT and Web3 side, our floor price is still stable. So we sold around 1,350 NFTs, 1,300. I think, I haven't looked it up for the last 2 days, but there are always between 5 and 7 NFTs on a secondary higher than the mint price. So, as I said, especially in the market conditions right now, I think that shows that the people believe in it, but also they still get beer. Doesn't matter what's happening, they still get beer. We guarantee it for at least 3 years, but as long as we exist. So it's like a lifetime supply as long as MetaBrew is there. Yeah, that's it. I don't know if there are any questions, maybe? Yeah. One second. Oh, I have to wait for a second because I didn't get it. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, is there a fund on the bottle? And if so, can I return it to Lidl to get it back?
I still didn't get it. A bottle? What?
Is there a fund on the bottle in Germany?
Yeah. It's a fund on the, just in Germany. Yeah. It's like, for everyone who's not from Germany, you have to give the can back like to the supermarket, and you get 25 cent back. So yeah, there's a fund in Germany. Yeah. Exactly, like regular regulations.
And if I sell my NFT, can the new owner update the metadata, meaning the address, to get new deliveries, or is always to the original owner?
No, you can, if you have the NFT, you get a quarterly airdrop, and then you can redeem the airdrop on our website, which is like a Shopify shop, and you can always change the address. And maybe what is interesting too, the shipping is like the beer's for free, the shipping too. And for example, to ship to the US is $55. So the shipping is included. The only thing is in Germany, you have to pay the 25 cents per can, but you get it back if you bring it to the supermarket. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. just that you know where to look at it. There are sometimes questions on here. So, okay, if there are not more questions, then I would say thank you for listening, especially at this time of the day. And yeah.
Everybody, nice. Thank you, Chantal. Yeah, probably having the talk for all the bear fans as the first talk in the morning maybe wasn't the perfect programming, but I loved it. That was my favorite talk that I've seen here so far. I'm a big bear fan. I actually run a bar. That's what I do in my spare time. Sleep bear, genius. I can't believe I hadn't heard of that before. Seems really great. We actually, in my real job, I run the local comedy club. My business partner's this like kind of kooky scientist guy that has all these mad plans. So one thing that he's done is he's created a pond that our customers that come into the comedy club can pee into. And then they pee into the pond, and it kind of filters through this hydroponic system. And the hydroponic system filters out the nitrogen in people's pee that then helps us to grow hops. And then once we've grown enough hops, we want to take the hops and use the hops to brew our own beer. So we kind of, our goal, our ultimate dream is to brew some beer made from the pee of the people. So Chantal, if we send you some hops, can you make us some beer? You don't know. Maybe it's healthier for everyone if it's not made from pee. I don't know. Very cool though, really great talk. Thank you. Are we good? Awesome, guys. We've got a panel now. It's a 45-minute panel on shifting crypto regulation, the latest developments and trends. Okay, guys, there will be a microphone going around at the end for questions probably, but if you want definitely your question to be answered, then you can scan the QR code here. That takes you to a chat room, and you can put any questions you like into the chat room. Or you can read the questions that other people have put and upvote them. So the last 10 minutes of the panels, or the last 5 minutes of the talks, whoever the speaker is or the moderator is going to look at the screens here and answer any questions that have come through the chat, basically. So, for a panel on shifting crypto regulation, latest developments and trends, please put your hands together for our moderator, Victoria, and we have Jana and Jana. Sorry about that. Jana Standish and Jana Sevink.
So, yeah. Hello, everyone. How are you feeling after 2 intense days full of educational and inspirational content and a great night out partying yesterday in Barcelona? I think we have the tough challenge to, in the next 45 minutes, to talk about something not many of us like to talk about. It's kind of like the evil thing in the room, regulation. I have 2 amazing people here who know a lot about regulation. I myself, Victoria, I come from policy. I have an economics background. And 5 years ago, after going through, different institutions, I was like, no, we have to rethink of how we work, rethink institutions. That was what got me into DAOs and Web3. So, but I give the word to my 2 panelists here to introduce themselves and also maybe kick it off when asking, why do you think that particularly in the last year, the pace of regulation and the talk and the intensity we feel has picked up?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Jana Standish, and I'm with a company called MyDAO, and we provide legal entity solutions for Web3 projects in the Marshall Islands. And I'm also part of Bankless DAO. I'm one of the ombuds there. and I'm part of FTW DAO, which also Victoria is as well, which is a venture capital DAO. And do you want to give an introduction to and then answer the question?
Yeah, sure. My name is Jana, and I'm regulatory counsel to Wirex. Wirex is essentially a crypto payment company that integrates traditional payment rails into crypto. We also have DeFi products like non-custodial wallets, which you can, mint bridge your NFTs and keep your assets safely with your own control. It's a global company working in different regulation under different regulations in US, Europe, UK, APAC, even in Australia. So, and I'm responsible from keeping it afloat. So this is pretty much where my background is.
And so maybe going back to the question, why do we feel the weight of regulation laying into this industry so much over the last couple of months? What are your thoughts and takes on that?
Maybe I can, take that. I think crypto has been here almost over 10 years, right? And the idea of blockchain and idea of it is even longer. But why we started to talk about crypto now? I think as financial impacts of crypto is getting more severe, now we are taking more attention from both regulators, policymakers, even politicians, and I think not only it's because we now started to create robust frameworks for crypto like we have in the EU, but also politicians and policymakers starting to draw attention into that, and that's why I think it's also right time for crypto to speak about regulation, because I think the mass adoption and an average Joe becoming interested in crypto would only come if regulation comes in. This is the only way.
I agree with you. And I think also the other reason why there's so much attention on this right now is because the opportunity is so huge and massive. And that's when policymakers, politicians, and people around the world pay attention, because right now you can see that central banks are threatened by this, sovereign nations are threatened by this, and so people are paying attention. And some jurisdictions are having more of a hostile approach to this, like the United States, I think, is a good example for a hostile approach, where they're not participating in the rule of law and proactive policy making. They're just going after projects and saying, we accuse you of unregistered securities, you're a criminal, you have a civil case against you. So this is what's happening, and if you look back in history, like with mobile technology, for example, it's hard to tell the mix of age range in the audience, but for example, text messaging was around for like 15 years before it became mainstream. Why is that? There was a huge opportunity, and mobile operators around the world noticed that, and as such, regulation had to be put in place. The same with like location-based services with mobile technology. At first, that was illegal, it was considered dangerous, and now look at all of us. We walk around with our phone like glued to our hands, and same thing, regulation had to be put in place and harmonized around the world. But I think with crypto and blockchain specifically, the opportunity is so massive, and it has the potential to change the way we do everything.
Yeah.
Banking, absolutely everything. And I think this is exciting, and it's also scary, I think, to a lot of regulators, because we don't yet know what we don't know, and we don't yet know all of the unintended consequences. So I think that's why there's so much attention on this.
Absolutely. I would even argue that, like, in policymaking, you always speak about like those windows of opportunity that open. And with elections coming up in the US, with elections coming up in the EU, there are policy windows closing, or also, I think, a lot of the steam in the US, when I want to be like a little cynical, I say like it's also triggered with like the intensity of the campaigning coming up, right? So
Absolutely.
there is a lot of fuss going on, and you're like, okay, because I think when we see regulators, like regulators are always like put together with like the bureaucrats and the institutions and the politicians, and they function in different cycles and mindsets.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, maybe before we go into like, okay, who are the actual stakeholders? Let's think of, and you also touched on it briefly. What would you say might be? Is there a right balance of regulation? Can there be?
Not because I'm a regulatory lawyer, but also from a personal perspective, I definitely believe there is a right balance. Because yes, when we are regulating a new topic, we always think about, okay, is it going to kill innovation or not?
Yeah.
So, but when you're maybe trying too hard to not to kill the innovation, you create flaws that companies like obvious, FTX or others could find their ways around, seen as regulated, but not providing right assurance to the customers as well. So I think when it comes to that, there is a right balance, and we are going there. But this will only come with an experience. You know, I think it's so normal to have a couple of incidents before you find the right balance. But I think we are nearly getting there. Now we have different approaches tried. Some of them worked, some of them didn't work. So I think from regulatory example point of view, Japan example was very important on FTX. So among many subsidiaries of FTX, Japan was so fast, could confirm that all funds are safe and anyone can get all their assets, all their funds, because they had a working solution, while some of the other jurisdictions that FTX was licensed couldn't. So I think that was one of the good examples of how regulation can help us going through that. And of course, I think there is it's yet to be developed. We are not there yet, but we are going there slowly. This is my point of view, and MiCA in Europe is I think a great step towards that, and probably impact the business and industry in general in a substantial manner.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say it better myself. I think there can be a balance, and I think if we look back through history, that's the thing, most of us have short memories, but if you look throughout history, in the end, for the most part, regulation has always harmonized really with innovation, and it's not really stifled it. And I think, like you were saying, in the beginning, maybe we make some mistakes, it's not perfect, but I think we have to remember that we're still in the early days. Like, even though this has been around for 10 years, even though these big DeFi protocol projects have, billions and billions of total value locked, for example, we're still very much in the early days, because if you go out and walk on the street, or if you ask your mother or your aunt or someone, if they know about crypto, for example, I guarantee you that their initial reaction to the word crypto is negative. Right? So that's like a whole other subject that I think our industry needs to address to change the narrative, and also to share examples of really practical use cases of how blockchain and crypto could help just mainstream life. Yeah. And I think if we focus on things like that more, as opposed to finding the criminals and the bad actors, because there'll always be criminals and bad actors since the beginning of time, and there will always be. So yeah, I do think there can be harmonization, and I just think it's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Maybe just the last bit to add in here, by the nature of the crypto, it can go anywhere, right? So if you push in one simple jurisdiction, you're also pushing people to go away, and we see that now companies are leaving US. Now we see even VCs, investors are moving their offices to Europe or London instead of US. So by the nature, there is actually a risk on losing the opportunity while you're trying to be too tight. I'm not an advocate for keeping it too light, but I think that's where the magic will happen when we find the right balance.
Yeah, I think you touched on one thing very concrete. So regulation, in a sense, like it's a piece of text, right? Yeah. Let's just say it's a piece of text. So how do we apply that piece of text? How do we ensure that companies and projects are prepared to interpret it in the right way, to be compliant with it? So what do these new regulations, what are the challenges that they bring?
I think the biggest challenge is education, making sure that people understand. And I don't know if you experienced this, Jana, but even I mentioned this yesterday, like 10 years ago, or maybe longer now, people started to just Google if their leg hurt or their ear hurt or something like this. And instead of going to the doctor, they would just Google doctor the approach, right? And they would decide if they would actually go to see a doctor based on what search result. People are doing similar things like that right now with legal matters, which I find both positive and negative because it's very risky. But I think to answer your question about interpretation is all going to be about having educational platforms and access for people so that they can understand what these regulations are about and how they help them and what sort of guardrails they have in place. And I think it's going to be the lawyers in this space that really get behind this, and also all of us, right? Like a lot of us have much more experience now on the legal side of things as opposed to like a few years ago when maybe we knew nothing about this, but the current environment has sort of forced all of us to get smarter about this. But my biggest concern at the moment is that there's a lot of misinformation out there. And the best way to address that, I don't have the answers other than I know that education is always the right medium, and then how we get that to the people is, I get to be determined.
Yeah, I think definitely these are the most important challenges before having a right attitude and understanding of a regulation. But I think we need also more people emote into policy making, emote into regulatory compliance. Because when you look at, for example, Klarna's business, it actually started from an interpretation of a legislative piece, and it was there for years. And somebody looked at it and saw an opportunity, said that I'm going to create a business, and they just create $1 billion business out of it. So when we look at the pieces and tags, so when we don't know the operational side, when we don't know the real practical side, this text doesn't really mean anything. So more people emote in the operation, more people understanding what is really the essence of crypto, DeFi, or any related blockchain topic. If they can get more interest into text, I think we will create way better solutions and understanding out of these regulations. Because as it takes for a lawyer who's not involved into the business, into the blockchain, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just another piece of paper. But like for a new innovative area, I think more people who has experience and knowledge about the industry itself should be more interested in regulation to make it really meaningful for a wider crowd.
Yeah. I think, so also when applying, one of the questions that is like, kind of like hanging over this industry, right, is it a security? And when I talk to people, like even like when going out in bars or yesterday night, it's like, well, but our project, we're like, could we be interpreted as a security? What happens if we are? And why does this one question, why does this one word, how many letters is it? 7 if I haven't got it misspelled Friday morning. So why do those 7 letters matter so much?
In my humble opinion, I think because of what's happening in the US and what we see the SEC doing and coming after big projects, I think this is instilling the fear of God in most of us. But what I want to say here is not legal advice, but is legal information. And I think people shouldn't be afraid of their token being a security. And I'll tell you why. In some cases, it is a security, and in some cases it's not. But if it is a security and you're registered, for example, as a for-profit DAO LLC, just as an example, there are exemptions in every jurisdiction in the world around securities. So there's the possibility to be exempt for like up to $20 million. And so I think if more people knew like that little detail, just as an example, people would stop trying to like hide and shoehorn themselves into a project that's not really what they're about. And that's when I think people misstep and make the wrong choices, and they circumvent going to like smart lawyers that would advise them to do otherwise.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest fear people have around being a security is they don't want to get in trouble, and they don't want to be, they don't want a regulator coming after them, accusing them of selling unlicensed securities, because that's, in a lot of jurisdictions, it's a crime. In some cases, it's a civil case, but nobody wants to be tangled up in that. And I think that's the biggest concern. And I don't know what your comments would be about Europe, but I do think in the US, like, it's a bit ridiculous. And what we see happening on a daily basis is like, they want to call everything a security.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's such a loaded question.
Maybe kind of before you start answering the question on security, allow me to give you another thought. I think securities is often like defined like in the text of financial law and banking law. And since you're based in the UK, and in the UK, was it this week or last week, there was all this talk about like this, finally, like after over a decade, there is like this new banking law, and it is like maybe giving an upwind to the UK. So maybe you can float it in your answer.
Yeah, sure. I, definitely agree with you. It's like being security, it almost seems like, okay, that's a stigmata, but it's not. It's actually not. It's just something that you need to, if your project is a security, then you just need to embrace it, and you just need to comply new laws coming with, it's a, there is a reason and consequences. It's simple as that from my perspective. But I think many big projects, although they have funds, although they have resources, they're just simply trying not, or trying not to be seen as security while they essentially are. I think we very well passed the era that, or if it's on blockchain, it's not security. No, it's not like that. And nobody sees it like that. No regulator wants to see it like that. So I think if you have resources, I think being security is not really a big problem for you. For smaller projects, I understand this because it brings a lot of cost to your compliance. It brings a lot of cost to your operations, and I understand the urge to not to fall within the security laws, which you can do that. You just need to arrange, organize your project around that. So this is pretty much what I see about that, and I definitely agree that it's becoming a witch hunt in US rather than having an appropriate approach. And in the UK, I think we have a very mixed approach. While the politicians are saying that, oh yeah, UK is going to lead and pioneer finance in the Europe, and we're going to make this. And then you see a consultation paper saying that, oh yeah, crypto must be regulated as gambling. So I think there are maybe it's good to have different opinions from different parts of the policy-making process. But I'm not sure to what extent the politic statements will effectively happen 100%, as they say. Because the biggest problem around that is, I think, the regulators or watchdogs, they press for tighter security, while politicians are trying to be seen more like, yes, if you're having a problem in the US, you can come to UK. We have a good experience in regulating complex financial instruments. which they have in. I think London and UK has the best experience in regulating complex financial structures. But the way they approach to crypto has been a little bit conflicting and mixed so far. We hope to see, and we also started to see a more sustainable approach on now marketing, and then the other rules about the stable coins are coming, gradually increasing the regulatory framework in a sustainable manner, which is, I think, making so much sense to me in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and can I just add something too, like maybe a question to the audience? Is anybody here involved in a DAO or want to be involved in a DAO? Okay.
Yes.
I think that on a daily basis, we're all getting smarter about just everything, like what's happening, the technology, the legal side of things. And I'll give an example, like in one of the DAOs that I'm involved in, we had these amazing contributors that one of them pulled out from being a multi-sig because our DAO didn't have a legal entity. And this person said, hey, with the case with, I don't know how familiar you are with the OkiDAO case, but what happened was they didn't have the appropriate legal wrapper for their project. And if you don't have that, and you're a group of people that come together for a common cause, it could be a book club, it could be anything. People that, like a group of you that like to go walking, and then maybe you buy water bottles for people. And anytime you come together for a common purpose, a group of people, and there isn't a legal entity, whether we like it or not, in the eyes of the law, you are treated as a general partnership. And when that happens, every single one of you, and me, and you, we are all held individually liable for whatever that group does. And that's a very risky proposition. And so I'm starting to see more people, like really amazing, brilliant people, forego important roles in DAOs because there isn't a legal framework in place. So people are getting smarter now to ask these questions. I think even like 2 years ago or 3 years, like I didn't ask the question either. Like it wasn't the first top of mind. And so my point there is just that I think this is going to become more and more important. Otherwise, yeah, we have brain drain from countries, but we're going to have people not wanting to participate in really important projects because the proper structure isn't in place, and there's a fear of getting in trouble or being involved with people that we don't really know who they are. They're just somebody in a Discord server. So just to add to your point, like I think this is another reason why these things are so important, because we talk about like inclusivity and inviting people into this space. We also need to make it safe so that people want to come here. So I just think that's an important point.
Yeah, and I think the biggest, one of the biggest concerns about the tax when they get involved in DAOs, because this uncertainty is keeping a lot of people away. I think that while some of the jurisdictions are moving ahead with tax clarity on DAOs, they will have probably the competitive advantage when it comes to regulating.
Yeah. I really like what you were saying, Jenna. Like, and yesterday there was this talk about the web of trust. And they did experiments of like, how do we trust people like that they're coming? And I think when thinking about like all the regulatory developments, it's like in an ideal world, like the regulation that we're having and how we're implying is like something that is creating trust. It's creating trust for investors, for consumers, but also businesses in operating, right? So, and I really liked what you said, because I think it's like, it's a new industry. Regulatory efforts are picking up, and slowly we have to figure out a way of how we can create trust that like this piece of text that is coming out has the good intentions for the ecosystem, right? And I think some jurisdictions are doing quite well or better than others, but some are also hard, because generally part of blockchain and the philosophy is also like our philosophy in Web3 is that trust is eroding everywhere, right? Yeah. And those are the institutions that should give us back. So would you have any, so what's your viewpoint on the challenge of how these institutions can, you know, recharge their battery of trust, their foundation of trust that they have been losing across industry, but particularly in this industry that also in our roots started of like saying something has to change. We need to have to rethink our systems.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good question. I don't really have the perfect answer, but I would just say all of us are here because we want to see something different happen in the world. Maybe, you know, maybe some people came from working in like traditional office environments or just all different backgrounds. And I think it starts with us, right? Like we're going to be the ones that welcome people in. We're going to be the ones that, you know, instill that trust. And then I think it's like, I don't like to use the word hierarchy, but in a way it's a hierarchy because then we're going to have to partner with legislators and we're going to have to partner with policymakers, and we can't let those things happen in a vacuum. Otherwise, we won't have the rule of law. We'll just have politicians saying, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and we won't have any participation. So I don't really have I don't know the answer. That's why I'm here. I'm in search of that answer. And hoping to partner with all of you to try to find like a welcoming space in a space that at least I feel comfortable in a space that I feel comfortable welcoming like former colleagues, friends, family, and people that I see are typically left out and left behind. I like to include them, invite them into this space because I hope that it will become even more and more inclusive and have like a fertile environment for this type of, space, really. So I guess I put the pressure on you to answer it.
Yeah, just like you, I don't have the perfect answer either, to be honest. But so when you look at what really brings the trust in general industry or regulation or a specific jurisdiction is very complex. You know, it could be the regulator itself, it could be politicians, it could be also some of the influential institutions in the country. When you look at the trends, you know, there was a trend going, or for example, registering in a crypto exchange company in Estonia, and you know they registered 200 companies, and then they're now delisting 170 of them because they didn't think it through. They didn't think that they could. They thought that they could manage it, but they simply couldn't. So I think not just having or positioning yourself as like a trusted part or jurisdiction is not enough. It needs to be a very complex and couple of other conditions should come together in order to create this.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's going to help is time, right? Because even when you meet someone new for the first time, how do you trust them? And in my opinion, I mean, this is just my opinion, but it takes time. You need to see like patterns of behavior. You need to see consistency. You need to see people following through on their word. And I'm not exactly sure how that's going to apply in the context of like blockchain, but I think it's similar because as long as humans are part of this whole project, if you will, I think it's going to be the same, and it will just take some time to see those patterns play out, really.
Yeah, it's a tough question, and I, as I said, like yesterday, this trust issue, when listening to the talk, it came up, where it was like, okay, but how could we help? I think I personally want to be hopeful, also because I think I'm starting to see and observing the policy and regulatory space in crypto. I'm starting to see that some of those institutions and governments that have always, they're like, we have done it always that way, why should we change? Are starting to rethink their approaches, like starting the way of how they do consultation in the UK has evolved slowly. then there are countries like Hong Kong and Dubai that have announced a couple of months ago, hey, we want to collaborate on that issue. The Marshall Islands, where you are doing the work with MIDAO, where the government openly invited you and said, like, look, let's team up on this and figure out of how we can create the first framework for DAOs, right? So I think there is a slow change of mindset, and it's really hard to break habits. I mean, all of us know when we are like, okay, in January, we're like, okay, this is like my New Year's resolution, and then 14 days later, it's like all gone. So I also think it's for government a little bit of like doing that, but seeing those little happenings and changes of behavior, what is your view, or what would you say could spark more international collaboration and this also maybe potential for iterative approaches that are collaborative in inviting people in?
So I think I definitely agree with you. Some of the countries, they just, come up with some pieces. Some of them are just inviting big companies. We see that, in Bahrain, they're just, inviting Binance into that and saying that just guide us. How we gonna pioneer this? But I think for international cooperation, we are still in the very early stages. We don't. I can't see anything more than consultation papers, flying around between institutions, but I haven't seen really a good cooperation. There are very general framework cooperations. I think Singapore had recently between UK, and UK had between EEA on general financial services. But I think for crypto-specific ones, we are still very, very early, I could say. But we see a consistent approach in some regulations, which is like travel rule, for example. We see almost the same approach from different jurisdictions, including Dubai, EU, UK, because it's FATF driven. So I think the industry players like FATF or for other international organizations, they have chance to bring that, but we are not there yet.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you look at the G7, these are the countries that are most opposing all of this, right? Because they control the global economy. They control the central banks. They control the flow of means in production. And they invented the legacy rails and banking legislation that we all operate on today. So I feel like it will come over time, but it's all the other countries that are not in the G7 see this as a massive opportunity. And I find that exciting, and I hope that countries like, in the G7 eventually, I think it will come and that we'll get there, but I think it's going to be smaller countries first that embrace this opportunity, because these types of opportunity come around only once every 100 years. And I think the countries that have been I'll just say haven't had such a position, like in the G7, for example, I think they see it as an opportunity. And some countries are embracing it and doing a great job. And even countries like the Marshall Islands, for example, we partnered with them. They have a long and storied, rich history in shipping and maritime and logistics industries. Like 1 out of every 5 ships in the world is registered in the Marshall Islands. 50 companies split between the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange are registered in the Marshall Islands. So it's a jurisdiction that has been around for a long time, has had a long and rich and prestigious reputation. But the country said, we also want to be a part of the new economy, because shipping and logistics might change 50 years from now. And so I think countries like this that are a little bit more forward-thinking and willing to take a chance on these things, I find it encouraging, and I think it's a win for all of Web3 when you can get the support of a president, the cabinet, and the legislators to partner with you to help write that legislation. So I'm hopeful. I'm like you. I'm hopeful, and I agree with John that it's the early days still.
Yeah. I see on the monitor that there were a couple of questions from the audience, so I would suggest we turn to that. And I just start with the top that has been upvoted quite a bit. So, do you think that regulations could be a Do you think that regulations could be a setback for crypto in the near future as a time horizon 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, maybe I can, take that. Maybe I don't know if it's right to call it a setback, but I think we will see a consolidation period for crypto companies. While we will see probably considerably smaller projects and considerably smaller companies will need to merge to handle the costs coming with the regulation. We have seen similar examples. Some of the companies they stopped due to upcoming regulatory obstacles that they couldn't be able to afford that, basically. So I think it will definitely drive relatively smaller companies into mergers or finding solutions, because also we know that investment is not in the best phase right now. So I wouldn't call it a setback, but I think that will be an era that we will see lots of mergers or coming together in order to afford upcoming regulatory costs.
Yeah, and I would even add, I don't know what your opinion is on this, but I see a lot of Web3 lawyers do what's been done for over 50 years now, is there's a lot of legal arbitrage going on where projects have several legal jurisdictions to cover all of the activities that they're doing. So in my opinion, my humble opinion, I think that there has always been this option, and I think there will always be this option. So projects that have the funding to do these types of legal maneuvers, I think they'll do them. And then the ones that don't, I agree with Jana, like there'll be more like roll-ups and collaborations and mergers, maybe not the word, but projects will collapse or be consumed by other bigger projects.
Yeah. I wonder, like, maybe sticking with that just for a second. So, setback for the industry potential as a business, or would you also argue a setback in terms of adoption of crypto? Because, like, in theory, the regulation should give more security to investors and consumers, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't think that in general it will create a setback for adoption. I think the biggest challenge, regulation itself is one of the biggest challenges before the mass adoption. My father doesn't invest in crypto unless he understands if there is a regulation or rules around that. So I think regulation itself has a bigger impact than these mergers or smaller companies needing to come together to cover the costs.
Okay, wonderful. Maybe going over to the next question. That's so, Donna, how can DAOs secure their IP rights?
Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. So if a DAO has a legal entity and the legal entity that they choose has legislation that covers this, like for a DAO LLC, for example, in the Marshall Islands, anything that you would put in your operating agreement, which is really the legal framework for your project, most of that comes from your DAO governance structure. So you would put that under the umbrella of your, like in this case, a DAO LLC. So I see lots of DAOs, like they all have IP, they have dApps, they have websites, right, that they're using to attract users or contributors. And I also see lots of DAO projects just have one legal umbrella, and then I see ones that sort of containerize the different functions of their project. Like maybe the treasury is in one legal entity, and the IP and the real estate are in another one. And it really just depends on the complexity of like what that project is trying to achieve, and also what type of relationships it might want to have and it might need to have with other legal entities. Like to run any company or project, you're going to need like SaaS subscriptions, right? Like we all use Gmail and Notion and Calendly and all these types of tools, right? And we pay for them with a credit card, right? So if a DAO wants to have these types of services to help run its project, you don't want to have an individual member of the DAO paying for those things with their credit card, because the obvious reason, what happens if they get into an argument with you or they go rogue, they can just pull the plug on the whole project. So like little things like this, and I don't know, Jana, if you want to comment on something else there.
No, I think you pretty much covered everything, 10 out of 10.
So there is another question, and I think it's also a good way to wrap up like our conversation. Is like, how can you guarantee that regulation is actually representative for the ecosystem, and that their representatives are represented inside the ecosystem? So what are, and kind of like the aspirational things, like how can we ensure this and make it better?
So I think it goes back to the topic that who is actually involved into policy making and regulation. So if it's people from the industry, I think, yes, we can. But there is no way to guarantee that. I don't think that anyone could. But only way to achieve this is real, industry, individuals coming into policy making, coming into the regulatory perspective, effectively responding to consultations. So, for example, in the UK, we have like some groups like Crypto UK or like Finance UK. So we come together, we bring our brains together. We try to just write back to every consultation to possibly affect any upcoming regulations. Of course, yeah. So I think this is the only way that we can guarantee, if we ever can.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would agree completely and say, even if you find this topic boring, maybe if there's a tiny piece of you that's a little interested, you should get involved. There's so many projects, there's so many groups, there's like Blockchain Association. In every jurisdiction in the world, there's a group that you can find that participates in influencing policy.
And I would also add, like, go and find your local representatives in government and just try and talk to them and try to make them listen, because also they have to start coming into this industry and listening. That's their job, to listen.
Absolutely. They will come and invite you to have a conversation with them. So you should definitely do it.
Okay, I think our time is up. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria.
Thanks,
you,
everyone.
Jana. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
All right, Victoria, Jana, and Jana, everybody. Nice. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. We've got about 5 minutes until our next talk is supposed to start. So I think we're just going to kind of stall while they change over all of the tech and that kind of thing, and while anyone that's coming for the talk can have a chance to arrive. Nice. How are you doing? You all right? Good? Do you want to see a magic trick? Do you want to see a magic trick? Yeah? Excellent. I've got, it's not really a magic trick, I should say. It's like half of a magic trick. Because it's not gonna be amazing, but it's gonna be a little bit surprising. Okay, it's like, I feel like there should be a different word for it. What's your name? Elizabeth, where are you from? From Ecuador. Nice, very far. Has anyone come from further away than Ecuador? I did. I came from New Zealand. Elizabeth, I have this cube. What I want you to do, because the thing about this cube, it's sort of like a magic cube, is it's heavier than you would expect it to be when you just look at it. Okay, it's pretty mind-blowing. It's pretty incredible, actually. So what I want you to do, Elizabeth, just in your head, is I just want you to imagine how heavy you think this cube would be. Can you do that? Okay, now hold out your hand. Yeah, it's heavier than you would expect, right? It's made of tungsten. That's what it does. Is it's unexpectedly heavy. This is the magic trick. Yeah. I told you it wasn't. It's not like a full magic trick. It's like a sort of a magic trick. Yeah. Deanna? Do you wanna have a go at the magic trick? Okay. Yeah. Just think about how heavy you think this cube is gonna be. Now hold out your hand. It's heavier than you would expect, right? Definitely. And even the thing about this magic trick, guys, is I'm talking about how heavy the cube is going to be. So you're already expecting it to be heavier than you think that it's going to be. But then the cube is even more heavier than you were planning on the heavy cube being. Isn't that amazing? It's like oh my gosh. Hey guys, all right. Have you held the cube before? All right. You picturing it? Heavier than you thought it was going to be, guys. Surprisingly heavy.
So you take it like if it was like super not heavy at all. Like
Yeah,
it like this.
exactly. This is what I've been trying to do is just sort of, I've actually been working out my fingers recently so that I can hold the cube in a way that makes it seem like it's not very heavy. I was trying to hold it like this, but it's not. Because I feel like if I hold it like this is probably the way that makes it look least heavy, right? But you tell me, does it look like I'm straining my fingers a lot? Yeah, I'm like shaking. Got like arthritis or something like that. Hey, you want to have a go at the heavy cube?
I tried it yesterday.
Oh, you tried it yesterday? You want to have a go at the heavy cube? All right.
Yeah.
Heavier than you thought it was going to be, right? Nice. I feel like that's probably 5 minutes. Awesome, guys. Now's actually a great chance, if you feel like scanning the QR code to join the chat room. That way you can ask any questions you like, or we may go around with a microphone at the end of the chat as well, so you can sort of stick up your hand and stuff like that. Cool. Are we ready? Muy bien. Guys, our next speaker is going to talk about community automations. Please make her feel very, very welcome and put your hands together for Reka! Yeah?
Oh, hi everyone. Oh, wonderful. It looks great. I thought it's going to be, I've heard the colors are a little different, but it looks great. Thank you. So nice to meet you, everyone. We're going to talk about a little bit in a story first. Have you ever visited a new friend in a new city where you only know them? And luckily, they're a great friend, and they invited you to a little get-together at their house. You go there, you're a little nervous, like you don't know anyone else. It's kind of crazy. But then you go through the door, and you have this assumption, and it is actually true, that every person you meet there, you not only have this one friend in common, but the things that they shared about you before as well. So you can assume you have more points to touch on. So it's much easier to make friends that way, right? I hope you experienced this, because it's wonderful if you have friends like that. I definitely did. And having these multiple points of connection makes actually building relationships much easier. And so we'll talk more. By the way, I'm Reka, co-founder of Guild XYZ. It's a access automation and role management infrastructure and tool. And I'll talk a little bit more community automations and how we can make relationship building and growing communities a little bit more scalable. So what I just said with the little party example, how can we grow communities in a way that we can still retain this commonality feeling, that we have something in common, that you're not a stranger in danger in this group that you just entered into? Growing communities this way requires a lot of care, attention, understanding of the space, the people who are there, super careful curation, and maintaining of the balance of knowing when to add more rules and structures and when to let things go and kind of grow with the flow as they should. And based on this, what are the ways we can automate community functions without harming the human element of it? Because it involves tremendous manual tasks. All the things that are listed above are fully manual right now. It's fully based on a person and their opinion and their subjective way of looking at the world. So how can we scale this a little bit more? How can we grow communities without sacrificing or harming the necessary human elements of it? Here comes roles. That's the role of roles that I want to talk about. And in a way that we establish a very purposeful set of structured roles, we can automate onboarding, education, campaigns for marketing, targeting different members in the community with messages, loyalty, and even retention. So as you can see, it's kind of like the whole vertical of what a community goes through over its life cycle, from like getting to know it all the way to like being a retained member over time. And these are all through, or can be done all through, some form of access to roles. There's this nice saying that I've heard recently, which is dictatorship at the door and democracy on the dance floor. And I thought that was really cute and very fitting here. It's essentially the notion that there's a very heavy curation system set up at the access point, and then letting things and people mingle much more when they're inside. So letting freedom flow and relationships blossom when they're actually inside and they made it through the access point. The importance of having roles here, though, is that there isn't just one dance floor or space, but there's multiple. And they're based on status, interest, context, even assets that they hold, contribution levels, and their involvement with the community in general. So when you enter even a Discord, there's so many groups and chat forms. So these are the metaphor for the dance floor rooms. And having these rooms to be as overlapping or as segregated as it needs to be, it's going to be very different in every community based on what their goals and missions are, and of course their purpose. And another little nugget here is that the most successful conversationalists, they always say there's two things you need to assume with entering any form of social interactions. One is that the person knows something that you don't, and you can learn that from them. And the other thing is you definitely have something in common. And this way, there's a much bigger potential of having an actual successful and enjoyable conversation and build a relationship with them. And so with automations and this technology that we're talking about, we can make at least this feeling of commonality much more hands-on and assumed and contextual, so that relationship building can be much more intentional. And Guild can help a lot with that. We can take off a lot of that manual load that I just described in the beginning. It works with the Guild model of requirements, roles, and rewards. And lucky for us, requirements can be made from all the data that we leave behind on the internet. I don't know if you guys saw the Threads launch on Thursday, the new app from Instagram to combat Twitter. But all the data that we leave behind intentionally or unintentionally, on-chain or off-chain, can be used as requirements to set up role structures that are basically your position, your status, your journey, your timely marker within the dimension of the community, and then can earn you rewards as in terms of participating in conversation, meeting new people, claiming actual rewards, collectibles, and such. Yes, let's move forward. So going back to here, all the things, these are just a few examples that I picked because these are very, very tangible. I'm going to explain 3 of them: onboarding, targeting, and loyalty, through communities that are actually using Guild and how they do that, and kind of very relatable. So first, onboarding. So onboarding is, to not be used jargon that much, it's the process of when a new member or an existing community member discovers more of the community, their value systems, their culture, their vibe, and decides if they're aligned with that and they want to continue further. That's kind of the process of onboarding. And there's 2 main challenges: to channel members towards high-value initiatives that the community, higher purpose, like, I don't know, whatever the purpose of the community is. For us, it's mostly around the product. For other people, it's fully around hosting events and stuff like that. They can decide on their own. And the second is to form subgroups that are very contextual, based on interest, so that people can find their own people and have fun. And to do these things at the same time is extremely challenging, and I don't think anyone has it right in the space in crypto as of now, as much as I'm diving into communities. But this is a screenshot from Developer DAO's guild, and what they did, though, as a solution, is they created this OG role for people who hold their token and the Genesis NFT for over 2 years. So people who have been around, they know what Developer DAO is about, they know what's up. And then they also created the 2 newbie role for people who hold some of their token and their new NFT as well. So this way they created a sorting system where new members and existing members get a different view of their Discord server, because these rewards are Discord server roles. They get a different view of the community instantly right as they get through the door. It's extremely valuable. It narrowed down their onboarding hurdle and the pain that the newcomers felt by getting overwhelmed with all the channels that they would have seen. This way, they only see a few that is relevant to them, that helps them educate themselves and get better at knowing the community. Targeting. This is the example of Pool Together. They're also a very sweet community. So their challenge with targeting was they really wanted to find a subgroup within the community that helps them give feedback about the new initiative that they're doing. And to find them, there's obviously thousands of people in this server and the members. It's almost impossible. You obviously will know a few hundred by name and know what they're about, but to automate this is extremely valuable. And also a little bit info about targeting. It's kind of the process of identifying members based on their subjective interests, some activity level that they have, or for some specific initiative that they might be interested in. And so what they did is they decided, okay, great, for this initiative, we just want to find the most active members that have been around, that are coming to our events. So they set up a role for the alpha leak of their new initiative, and they asked people to hold POAPs from the last 6 months of community events, one of those POAPs or multiple of them. Hold a Git POAP, which is a POAP that you can get for contributing to the protocol on GitHub, and an NFT that the co-founder of this project made. So people who have been around know these tasks. And this way they could identify, the solution slide. So they set up these roles, set up this role for them, and this way they could identify this special couple hundred segment within their thousands of people community that are highly active, and they could activate them and give access to this. Oh, you guys can't see, but it's a Google document. I don't know, can you see from the light? It's a Google document where they shared everything about the new initiative, how it's going to look like, what it's going to go like. And they also granted them access to a new channel in the server with a Discord role, so they can actually talk about it. And this way they had hundreds of people to give them feedback and get started with the new initiative right off the bat. It's extremely valuable. Third little thing, loyalty. Loyalty is kind of the indication that a member is willing to continue to contribute, participate, and that's what we actually really want to see. That's what gives longevity to a community, to a project. That's the big value add. I said this yesterday in a little interview outside, that the 3 main things that community gives Web3 is sustainability, legitimacy, and distribution. And loyalty is all 3. And we really want this. Everyone wants this. This is great. People actually liking what you're doing and sticking around, wonderful. That's what we want. And so Uniswap, in their guild, decided that they really want to focus on loyalty. They highly value this in their members. And obviously, it's a very well-doing protocol. So what they did as a great learning curve for us is they set up 4 different roles. There's actually more, but these fit on the screen. 4 roles for people who technically are great supporters and understand the protocol well, and they provide liquidity in their new version 3 of the protocol, and have an NFT for that to show. And they get a new Discord role for this position so that the members of the team can directly talk to them and, incentivize them even more, get them even more involved, reward them for their activities. This is a very high value input that they provide for the team. This is great. They have to be rewarded. And the other two in the middle, they're active users of the exchange, and they also have this NFT for that for show. I think this is another project called Nukes that gives out these rewards for on-chain activities. You can claim another NFT that you completed a bunch of on-chain tasks. So they can identify different levels of activities of people using their exchange. That's your users. So we have people who contribute to the success of the protocol. We have the users. And we also have the Unisocks holders who, I don't know if you've known, it's quite a few years old now. There was a marketing campaign for Uniswap that they created these NFTs of Unisocks. And if you burnt them, you got actual socks. And at some point, they were worth thousands of dollars for a pair of socks if you burnt your NFT. But those 6 people here that still have the role, they kept it. They didn't care about the few $1,000s. They kept the NFT. That's loyalty. That's crazy for years. So knowing who these people are, having direct open communication with them is, I can't emphasize how valuable that is for Uniswap, for all of us, even in our smaller chat groups. And I was really fast, which is great. We'll have time for questions if you have any. But I kind of want to close this. Like, imagine all this tech. This is just one tool. This is just our product. And there's a bunch of others that we have integrated that they're doing different things of giving badges to people. If we use this technology well, imagine all the automated personalization that we can do in our communities, because the space isn't as mature as right now. Most of community efforts are still used for marketing purposes, and I can't wait till we mature away from that. I love marketing. I'm a CMO. I love it, but still, all these personalizations, when it goes to the next level that we can provide like deeper, more valuable experiences to each other, and that facilitates better relationships, I just can't wait for that, and these are a great start for that. So yeah, automation is sexy. It helps the team stay focused on what's actually important, curating members, creating a good atmosphere, staying on track with their goals, instead of completing manual tasks of filtering people, talking with them, and constantly resetting all the requirement systems, because this will go on forever until they decide to change their goals. So it takes off a lot of heavy lifting. And yeah, thanks for your attention. That was it. Little nuggets at the end. If you have any questions, more than happy to answer now. I'm also around for hours today, so thanks for listening. Go on. We have like 5 minutes. It's great. I've never been this compact and fast.
Yeah, the question, it was too long for me to write it in the... have you thought about kind of like adding a soul-bound dynamic NFT into your product so DAO members can create quests or tasks for their members, and your tool, your product, measure those tasks and quests, and kind of like the dynamic NFT evolve, giving that member more tokens, responsibilities, and a better kind of like level in the DAO?
It's a very technical question, I think, and I've been in love with dynamic NFTs for so long, and I wish someone else did it, because it was on our roadmap for years, and it was, always just a nice to have. It's a wonderful idea. Right now, we have only one thing on chain so far, which we launched like a month ago. We've been around for almost 2 years, but we have our first ever on-chain thing that launched around a month ago, and it's a proof of join soulbound NFT. So it's a very static thing. Similarly to a POAP, you get this for joining a community. If you have at least one of those roles, you get this. That's it. And what we really want to move towards next is the roles themselves, because they are the actual abstraction layer of the community that you can use in any other product. And so far, you could use this through our SDK as well, when other projects integrated that for all these access stuff. But soulbound NFTs as the roles, interoperability to the max, like that would be wonderful. And I think the only option for that to actually work well is through dynamic NFTs, because what differentiates us from many other projects that give rewards for some activities is that we have the roles, and we constantly keep tracking the access, if you actually still hold the NFT, if you haven't sold your tokens, if you still follow me on Twitter, those are all being checked all the time. And the soulbound is great, but the dynamic comes in handy to be able to, you know, imagine you follow me on Twitter, you buy 1,000 of Reka tokens, and I give you the soulbound NFT, and then you instantly sell, but you still have it. So to be able to change that while you still have the NFT, but change the attributes to it or the look of it or anything that still can be used as then a requirement to check if you not only have the NFT but qualify is extremely valuable. So yeah, that's actually a good way to go.
Oh, and have a look to Summon, Game 7.
Sorry?
Game 7 is a DAO, created a product called Summon. Okay, I can send you some more information later. And they built a very similar product, you know, for DAOs to engage their members through soulbound NFTs, dynamic soulbound NFT. It's a very interesting tool. I can give you more information later.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, there's one in the back.
Hey, thanks for the talk. Really like the science that you're bringing to the community. So the question I have is, what's the business case behind it? So I mean, like, it's common sense that you really need to take care of the community, right? But like, what's the uplift that you can get based on your clients or whatever? So is there any material effect from doing it in this way? Just curious.
So for the clients or for us?
For clients, of course.
Many. So just disregarding the value of knowing who these people, knowing who your audience is, who your biggest supporters are, who have been around, just the value of targeting those people who you know what else they have in their wallet, what other communities they're part of, they're actually lucrative, they're interested, they've been around, they are supporters of yours. That in itself. And then it's of course different in every community depending on what their like financial structures are, what their business goals are. But activating these different layers of the community and different identities and personas is extremely valuable. But right now, I think most communities still use this other than identification and the targeting and everything. They have their own like NFT structures usually, or they're already tokenized and have launched their token. And this is more of like doubling down on the actual active members in their community and activating them. So that's a pretty good mechanism to make money for them. Thank you for the question. Sure, we have like 40 seconds. So thanks everyone. Thank you so much for the questions and being here. Reach me at Twitter.
Nice, Reka, everybody! Awesome. Cool. So, guys, the next panel, it's a panel on the state of talent and work in Web3. It's supposed to start in 5 minutes, so we're just going to give people a chance to arrive, to grab a seat, that kind of thing. Now I'm going to give you a chance to stretch your legs if you want, stand up, scan the QR code. If you like, join the chat so you can ask questions for the panel. And I'm going to come back in about 3 minutes to introduce the panel, and we'll get that started. Cool? Thanks, guys.
Doesn't coming at all in the stage. And then the next toll is going to stay the same. Shagun is going to make it. Okay. Yeah, they just like instead of Shagun, it's great. But the name is going to be Shagun. And it's going to be moderator Shagun Radam. On the screen, something. Then you tell me. Yeah, I think on the screen. You need it on the screen.
Okay then, so on this screen, okay, Manolo. Para.
We're back. We have a panel for the next 45 minutes on the state of talent and work in Web3. So you got a quick chance to scan the QR code, guys, if you want to interact, if you want to ask questions or anything like that. The last sort of 10 minutes of the panel will be them addressing questions, so feel free to do that if you want. We have had a change of moderator, so what comes up on the screen is not going to be the person moderating. Please welcome your new moderator, James Ray, and we have Amanda Kelleher, Kirsten Pomales, and Felipe Macido. Put your hands together, everybody.
Hey guys, how are we doing? Testing, testing. Is the mic on? There we go, guys. Come on, grab a seat. Oh, mics are there as well. Just give them a little check. So welcome today, guys. This is the panel discussion about the state and talent of work in Web3. So we've got a really exciting lineup for you guys today. And what we're going to do is just quickly go around, give a little short bio so you get to know everybody. First of all, my name's James. I'm a community manager at Being Crypto. I'm going to pass around to the discussion so everyone can introduce themselves briefly. Just take a 30-second bio or so.
Yeah, I'm going to try to put my own personal bio on talent protocols in 30 seconds. But throughout my career, I've done a bunch of stuff from computer engineering to DJ to working in advertising and now a Web3 founder. And throughout this journey, I've made a lot of people help me, and a lot of people wanted to follow kind of my journey. What new exciting things are you doing? And Talent Protocol is basically a way, a social and economic platform where people can share their goals and share their journey, and using crypto and tokens as a way to incentivizing more support, more interactions, and more people helping each other out.
Amazing. Amanda, if you want to go next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Kelleher. I'm the Chief People Officer at Consensus. We're a leading blockchain Web3 software company. You might know some of our product suite, MetaMask, Linear, Infura, for some of them. So I'm really excited today to be kind of talking about, I think we're going to talk a lot about hiring, but my passion really is about the people within the company and what you're doing to grow them and retain them, because I think that it has fundamentally changed in the last few years for a lot of reasons. And I think that our ecosystem is really going to be the space by which fundamentally changes how everybody works, I think. And that's truly fascinating to me. So there you go.
Thank you, Kristen, if you want to jump.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here today. I'm Kirsten with Talent Layer. So my background, I was a freelance developer, freelance marketer for a while. I've always had software startups on the side, was completely Web 2 until about 2020 when I realized that blockchain technology was completely changing the paradigms of how organizations are structured. And the biggest issues that I've ever faced in my own personal life as a worker, and then as a hirer of other people, has always been finding the right people. And that's something that most of us can relate to, whether we're looking for work or hiring. And really what Talent Layer is it's our take on trying to solve the issues of connectivity between people. So right now in the way that we hire, you basically have a lot of different platforms, a lot of data silos. What we're doing is we're breaking down the silos that really prevent people from connecting with each other, but I can get more into that later. Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys. And just wanted to say to everyone, everyone's having a great time at the event so far. This is a really important discussion for us today, because really it's about opportunities in this space and how we can get to them. So I just want to say, obviously, coming into this space, there's 3 ways we can really invest in it. We can invest in crypto, we can invest in NFTs, and digital assets, but really, most importantly, we can invest in ourselves and getting these jobs and elevating each other in this space. So I just wanted to try something very quickly, guys. So if anyone in the crowd is looking for a job currently, and be honest, just put your hands up. See, there we go. And if anyone in the crowd is also hiring right now, can you put your hand up? So this is what we're doing, guys. Today we're going to be connecting people, and this is what these events are about, connecting with people that need what you have. So we're going to jump into this, guys. We've got 10 amazing questions today. We're going to try and get through them all, but I know that it might be a little bit difficult. So coming in, and they all have a small miniature title. So first question is, and this is based around current trends. How has the Web3 space influenced the current trends in talent acquisition today? You guys can really jump in as you see fit.
Sure. So the first thing that comes to mind is like I think it was maybe 2020 that blockchain was like the top keyword on LinkedIn to have on your profile. So like ever since then, there's been just this massive flood of developers, like marketers, creatives, especially with the NFT craze, that have been getting into the blockchain space because of just more awareness on the technology, which has been really cool. So I think on one hand, I want to say that like mainstream interest in working in the blockchain sector is bigger than ever. And this is something that I've seen not be impacted as much by the market cycle, which was super surprising for me. I would expect like, all the hackathons and conferences this year to have like less people that are, I'm a dev and I'm teaching myself Solidity and I'm getting into it, but it's not. Like I've seen more than ever, which is super, super exciting. And then sort of switching to implications of blockchain technology for hiring more generally, this is where we haven't even began to scrape the surface of everything that's possible. And really, like, what are the benefits of blockchain technology? I think that in general, we could look at DeFi as an amazing example of what blockchain can do. So why is DeFi revolutionary? You can have quick speed of matching need and want. That's really cool. You can have basically composability fuel so many different applications, so much innovation, and you can have trust between parties that would normally never be able to interact with each other across the globe. So I see all of these things coming into the hiring space, and some of us on this panel are also building technology that we're hoping will create this future.
I'd like to add maybe from more of an individual perspective. I think that was like a macro perspective on what's happening in the market. I think from an individual perspective, in Web3 we have a lot of bounties, and I think that's kind of a new way of working, and I think is related to the trend of kind of fractional work, in the sense where a lot of us have multiple jobs and multiple roles at the same time with different companies, and that's, I think, getting more and more normal.
I'll give a slightly different answer. I think what is interesting is there's a lot of talent out there. And if you group it, it will vary from people who have got experience in the space. You've got some where it's a little bit, and then you've got curiosity. And I think that companies need to be adjusting their mindset in terms of attracting all of that talent. It's really important for us. If we want to grow our space, we've got to be inclusive. We've got to be bringing in all kinds of people. And so I think talent acquisition from a company perspective is you have to be really investing heavily in education and learning and development, and the strategies in place within a company to be able to support these different levels of kind of understanding and grow from within. So I want to encourage everyone, no matter where your kind of interest level is or your understanding is, don't shy away from the space, but be really thoughtful and intentional about looking for those elements in the companies that you want to work for, because that's what's going to support you and help you grow.
Amazing, guys. And I love what you said there, Philippe, because it's like the thing that came to my mind was, wearing many hats in an organization. And I think that's really important today because, with, the rise of technology and AI, we do all have to pivot in this space and find our little piece of it. So, and moving on to question number 2, it's about decentralization. So as we move towards more decentralized systems within Web3, how do you see this impacting traditional HR structures and talent management?
I can jump in. It's going to fundamentally change everything. We're starting to see it now. You have to get your minds around where people want to work, how they want to work, when they're going to work is completely different. And if you can't get your head around that, I think that you're not going to have a good time. Following now, it's starting to happen, is the way people are compensated, and I think that that's really interesting. I always had this visualization in my kind of aspirational mind that, like, I want it to be like an a la carte menu where an individual comes and starts with a company and they can choose the things that are meaningful for them, but the package then relates equitably amongst everyone. So like, this is the kind of thing. I just did an offsite with my leadership team, and we really thought a lot about that. Like, we have to match the industry. We have to match the people who are in the industry and what they're looking for. So I think over the coming years, you're going to start to see these things change. Fundamentally, the one that's happening right now is the fluidity of the workforce. So, for example, Consensus is about 900 people. We're in 40 different countries. So the geographical footprint that you're dealing with means that you're now running a 24/7 company just from a time zone perspective. So then you've got to be super disciplined in investing around working async, because you can't have a culture where everything is dictated by one time zone. So you're going to start to sort of like see it everywhere, and you have to be really intentional about it.
I can go. I think regarding decentralization, I was thinking one positive and one negative. I think the positive, and this is something that's been true for us, Talent Protocol, as a company. It's normally true for DAOs, kind of to fund people in their community that have ideas, that contribute, okay, take some budget and go make that happen. But in companies, we're also experimenting with this. So instead of hiring full-time employees, we're actually funding people in our community that have good ideas and project ideas. So instead of hiring, for example, a full-time marketing manager, we just gave a budget to 2 community members, and now they're working part-time. They have their own budget to manage, but they are not our employees. So I think that's a big change in terms of HR structure. I think the one negative of decentralization is kind of the loss of social ties. So I think it will be much easier for people just to change jobs much faster, because they're not tied to as much tied to the other people in the company. They're just tied to their compensation of what they're getting to do that particular job. So yeah, I think that's something we need to be careful of.
Yeah, so before this discussion, Amanda and I were riffing a little bit about like retention of people within organizations, even in like, you know, a completely fluid work environment. And we were thinking like, you know, as long as people have shared values and have ways of well, I mean, really as leadership, like we need to be making sure that people are interacting with each other and getting fulfillment. And this is something like within my own team that we've been trying to figure out recently. So it's been on my mind a lot. But that's sort of heading in a tangent direction. So on this question, completely agree with both of your both of your answers. So I won't like belabor those points. But one thing that we haven't hit on yet that I think is really important is the implications of like, I guess like anonymity really, and like less information needing to be shared about you as an individual with employers. So in the like blockchain crypto sector, we've seen that it's now relatively normal for companies to hire people where you don't necessarily know that person's legal name, you don't necessarily know where they live, and this is something that's really, really powerful for inclusivity, because as of right now, like, you know, you could be female, black, whatever, like all of the different things that usually people would be discriminated against, and you can like, you know, roll up to a crypto startup and not have to disclose any of that, and that's really, really, really powerful. I see that, like, basically once this sort of new way of working, this sort of decentralized way of working becomes more mainstream, and I think it already is, but it's just getting started right now. I see like anonymous work and work where you don't have to disclose your entire life to an employer becoming something that is more normal. And I'm really, really excited about that, because I think that that's just going to be unbelievably huge for inclusivity.
That's an amazing aspect that you brought, you know, to attention there, and I think it actually moves perfectly into the next, which allows this, which is the next question about remote working, because we can't talk about Web3 and not talk about remote working. So, when the advancements in Web3 and the increasing tendency towards remote working, and what unique challenges and opportunities do companies face in recruiting talent and retaining that talent?
I feel like Amanda would have an amazing answer to this.
Well, we've been remote from the beginning. We're fully remote. Okay, what do you need to think about? One thing I'm excited about remote work from a sort of inclusivity perspective and diversity perspective is I think we're really opening up the talent pool in terms of who we can attract. So simple story, I'm a single mum that lives in New York and I'm going to spend the summer in Europe. Like, about 10 years ago, I could not have imagined a world like that. And so I think that a lot of restrictions that you may have had to talent in more traditional companies, having to go into an office, be in a specific location, are breaking down. And that, for me, that is so exciting. There's a place for everybody. But, you know, what are some of the things that you need to think about with remote work? Again, the 24/7 nature, being really disciplined around async. I've seen it so many times when people come from Web 2 into Web 3, they're working remote, and they're like responding to emails or Slack messages at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's like, stop, no, like you don't need to do that. So you do need to be really disciplined around your culture around that. I think that the way that you're going to develop talent within a company and the skills are going to be a bit different because we're on Zoom calls a lot. I think your communication skills, both written and verbal, need to be really strong because you're relying on those a lot more. I think in terms of the social connections, my biggest tip would be don't just try to do what you've always done in the past. Ask your people what they want and shape those opportunities for social connection around that. We introduced a year ago, I think, actually, DAO days, because they're a big deal to people in our company. So once a month, everybody just gets to have the day to work on DAOs, but we do a lot of education piece. So it's really thinking about what the people, be very transparent, ask everybody what they want, and then see what you can do to actually bring that together.
Very well put. So in sort of my journey as like a startup founder, manager, there's one sort of philosophy around how to treat employees that I really like, and it's called like entrepreneurial management. So this is not, you know, referring to you as an entrepreneur, but it's referring to empowering the individual people that are working on this stuff to feel like they have the autonomy to just really take charge of their tasks. And that means like you're delegating a lot of the direction to them. And, you know, in the more traditional hiring space, this is stuff that's very scary. Like, oh, why would you want your employees to make all the decisions about the success of the company? But if you are hiring people that are vision aligned, hiring people that you trust, even if these people are in like, you know, more fluid, like, you know, contracts or the way that you interact with them, then you should feel confident to delegate this important stuff to them. And the really cool side effect of this sort of strategy is if people feel like something is theirs, and if they feel like they have control on the decision making, and they understand that like they have your trust, really, like as a manager, if you even, you know, have those concepts in your company, then that creates like so much excitement and enthusiasm and really makes people motivated to go and do the stuff every day. So that's something that I think is just super, super important, regardless of what your organizational structure is, both in Web 2 and Web 3, but it's especially important in remote environments because, like from a logistics standpoint, it's almost impossible to be like a hovering manager. Like, my gosh, if you try to do that in a remote environment, then you're doing, you know, the crazy stuff that some companies tried during COVID where you're, you know, tracking people's time on the laptops. And it's just, that's a bunch of bullshit. Like, that doesn't make people happy, and it also doesn't achieve the goal that you have as a manager because it can be easily faked. And it's, I won't get into that tangent. You can tell that it's frustrating to me. Anyways. Yeah, empower your people. Everyone's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I just want to touch on things that you both said, because for people to have autonomy, like you mentioned, and to have a good sense of how to manage their own time, to have good communication skills, it's very hard to have this when you're in your first job. So it's things that come with experience, come with maturity, and one of the challenges that I see in remote working is that it's very optimized for very experienced individual contributors. And in Web3, we see a lot of new people, a lot of young people, a lot of people that never had a job before. So a lot of these skills, you get them just by working, by experience, by having multiple jobs in different contexts. So I think it's very important for us as founders and managers, because when we're distant, it's harder to coach people, it's harder to identify these struggles. So I think that's a challenge that we should be focused on. And just to finish, just a quick personal take that I don't think the word remote work actually fits, especially in Web3, because remote, I think, assumes that there's a center and you're remote from it. And in the decentralized world, I prefer the word distributed a bit more, and also focusing on async, which I think is the important, working asynchronously and not actually being, I don't care where you are, it just means working asynchronously.
I think we should all adopt that from now on, actually, you know. And I just realized as well, we're not doing well on time at all, guys, so we're going to have to really be quick here. But this is actually a brilliant one, because I'm speaking about those talent pools. This is about skill sets, and what unique skill sets do you think are in the most demand in Web3 within your organizations, and how difficult it is to keep or to cultivate those talents?
Well, just anecdotally, most of the teams that we come across, including our own team, have a lack of front-end devs. And I think that this is really funny because there are so many front-end devs out there, and a lot of times, I talk to people that are trying to get into Web3 and they're like, oh, I'm going to learn Solidity, even if they're a front-end dev. It's like, no, I want to do the Solidity stuff because that's cool. It seems new and fun, but my gosh, you can just take your existing awesome React dev skills and then go find a bunch of opportunities here. And the learning curve to just, implement some of the Web3 functionality in applications, it's really not that high. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I'd point out. But that's, for a very specific role, I would say. In general, sort of going back to the prior question, the things that you need to have to succeed in this sort of environment is, I would say, understand the philosophy of Web3. You could, of course, just learn the tech and come in and get a job, but there's so much in this space that is deeply rooted in philosophical concepts that have been around for decades. Read why Satoshi created Bitcoin, read stuff from the cypherpunks, and then you'll be able to understand better the direction of the projects that you're working on and contribute to that vision as well. And then just you have to be good at managing your own time, because like we said, in the async, in the decentralized workforce, we're all entrepreneurs. We're all figuring our own stuff out. So if you're not good at that, find ways to become good at that. And there's plenty of ways to force yourself into patterns, and it's just about getting into good habits.
Yeah, I would focus mostly, I think the most important are the soft skills we've been talking about. So good writing, passion for learning, and autonomy, being able to do things on your own, and ask for forgiveness, not permission, that kind of mindset.
I like that one. I think I say that almost every day. Have high levels of curiosity and have a growth mindset. I think companies have a responsibility in the space that we're in to be hiring, as I said, those buckets of experience, mid, and no experience. But if you've got curiosity and drive and a growth mindset, you're going to come in and you're going to learn from the people around you and all of the resources and everything. So that would be my tip.
I like that, guys, and I like the ask for forgiveness, not permission. I was saying this thing, fail fast, fail hard, but fail fast, and just get up. So moving on, privacy and security is a huge part of Web3. Given the security and privacy concerns surrounding Web3, how can an organization handle candidates' information, and what measures are in place to protect it, especially the sensitive information around it?
I don't have much to say here. I think I can give some ideas of what could work, but I think in our cases, I think both me and Kirsten, we have small organizations, so I would say it's still very manual, but I think just throwing it out there, I think using ZK proofs instead of resumes could be one, or just like taking the anon or pseudonym culture of Web3 and using it in hiring to kind of remove some of the biases that we have are two ideas to explore, I would say.
Collect only the information that you need to collect. We are bound, unfortunately, by regulations in all of the different countries and things like that, so some information, but just collect the bare minimum and be really, really thoughtful and intentional about what we put everything behind Okta. We're very mindful of security, but just be thoughtful of the products and things that you're using and where you're storing the data. We also delete a lot as well, so we'll only keep data for the sort of minimum amount of time that we have to. So we try to be super disciplined around that.
So for we'll say like the prior, umpteen years of working in crypto and having, most folks that work in crypto be paid in crypto, this has created a lot of privacy concern around like where your money is going. Because imagine like, you're working in a normal salary job, like when that money gets sent to your bank account, you don't have everyone in the organization knowing how much you're earning. And for sure, they don't know that you're going and buying cheeseburgers and a new TV and a car and like all that stuff. But like, you can see literally where all of this is going. You can see every trade that people are doing. And a lot of people don't realize this. Like, it's sort of an afterthought. So I think that like one of the bigger things that we can be doing within our organizations, as well as like with the hiring tech that we build, is like Felipe said, using ZK technology. So this is not just important for like hiding the wallet, because even if you like are able to hide wallets, then you can still like with Chainalysis and other things like really do some tracing and figure out like who owns each wallet. So also obfuscating the transaction itself with stuff like Railgun or ZK Bob. So with Talent Layer specifically, like we have infrastructure for hiring. So this includes like identity management, those payment transactions and all of that. And we've been working a lot recently to try to find the different ZK tools that are out there and then add them as integration. So if people do want to have like completely untraceable payments while still having things like the trust that you have using blockchain technology and reputation, but just in like a fully undisclosed of who you are personally way, then you can do that.
I like it. And coming on to the hiring process, how has the onboarding process changed, do you feel, within your organizations and with the advent of Web3?
I can tell you about our onboarding at least. So I'll make it simple. We don't hire full-time employees. I mean, people can get there, but we don't hire them straight away. I mean, we did in the beginning in the past, and everyone that we hired through a normal process of kind of job posting, candidates, screening, choosing one, they were the worst hires that we did. So now the process is simple. You start with bounties, you start working on smaller projects, you kind of move on to bigger projects, and you basically go up our kind of community pyramid, so to speak. So it doesn't mean they're more important, it just means different commitment levels. So they start with a very low commitment level, and then if that goes well, they will evolve over time. And this is beneficial both for us and for the person that's interested in working with us, because we can both see if there's a culture fit, if there's a values alignment, if we work well together or not, without wasting our time, and also making sure that the time they're giving us is paid. And these have been our best hires, and we have some of, I think half of our team, full-time employees, came through this process. It also makes it easier for them, going back to the initial trend of fractional work, to actually starting to work for us without having to quit their current jobs.
Actually, onboarding is something that a couple of years ago we invested pretty heavily in because we wanted to make sure that it was a great experience. we give a lot of information as part of the onboarding, so you're immediately put into the educational portals to be able to get into all of those materials. We make sure that there's no sort of time zone sensitive nature to your onboarding, so that doesn't matter where you are, you can access those materials and those things. Once you're starting, we're really intentional about putting like new hire circles together. Like we'll do a lot of introductions to start to create those mini communities at the individual level so that you can start to navigate and get to know the organization through the different groups. So yeah, I don't know, we're like just very thoughtful. We do like a lot of company like town halls, things like that. So we're doing as much as we can to get people exposed just outside of their team to the wider company as fast as possible.
So the structure of the team within Talent Layer is really similar to Talent Protocol. So we also just have a lot of open source contributors that work on bounties, and then we have core team members that are full-time, and exact same sort of flow that Talent Protocol uses. The thing with that is like it's amazing, but when it comes to like scaling that, we haven't really seen how effectively we can do that because we're still small, right? So I wanted to mention one community that I feel like has really scaled that well, and that's Codadot. So Codadot is a project in the Polkadot ecosystem. It is a open source NFT marketplace that's currently the biggest marketplace in the Polkadot ecosystem. And the structure of their team is fascinating because they have just, like 200 some open source contributors, and they have basically like you start off doing some work and you're actually not paid, and then after you do a couple of those well, people, like anyone in the community that's reached a certain level can then allocate money for your bounties if they think that you're a good contributor. And then the more that those people progress upwards, the more money that they can allocate, and it's just sort of this nice autonomous machine that the founders don't have to manage as directly. So they've done a super good job of allowing that to scale, and I'm so excited to try to get to that point ourselves. Yeah.
Amazing. And I'm just going to go straight in because we've got 4 questions left and about 10 minutes. So, getting down to the nitty gritty. So challenges. What are some of the main challenges that you guys are facing in your organizations when it comes to HR recruitment, and how have you overcome them?
So, I mean, this is a challenge that we haven't quite overcome yet, and it references some things that Felipe pointed out earlier, and that is getting the connectivity right amongst the people in the organization. And we're trying a bunch of things, of course. So trying to all meet up in person once every few months, trying to have ways to get to know each other, like questions of the week, which people like, and just hanging out in Discord, popping in, co-working, stuff like that. But it's an evolving process, and I think that we probably have a lot to learn from Amanda, who's been doing such a good job at this for so long.
Challenges. I think the pace at which things change is really challenging. I feel like some weeks, we're formulating something we want to do, and by the time we're ready to execute on it, it's probably changed. So, and that can be really exhausting. I think the other one is company fatigue. That is one thing that I've noticed about a remote work culture, because you're just pushing everything out through sort of Slack or email or another Zoom call, and if you've got a lot of programs happening, and in our industry there's always something happening, that it's so busy, and so I'm really mindful of that company fatigue. People can get exhausted. It's so much information coming at them, and you don't have the beauty of when you were in an office and you could see that. So I think being really mindful around that. I think that the social connection bit is really interesting. We've been trying out an idea around, because we have no offices, of doing these pop-up offices in kind of core locations. So we'll pop an office up for a week, and then anyone that's within a certain vicinity of that go in and and no pressure of like, normally a lot of companies will do the get together as like a retreat or a conference, and that can be very overwhelming for people and they get exhausted just thinking about it. And so there's something that's just a bit more like, no, this is just a pop-up office. You don't have to prepare anything. You can just like, come in, hang out, do lunches, those kind of things. So we did do a pilot of that and that was really successful. So I think that's something, that we're going to do. But definitely the fatigue bit, information fatigue, is one to watch out for.
Perfect. We can move straight into the next one. And this one's about future trends, guys. So looking ahead, what trends do you anticipate in the Web3 talent market in the next couple of years?
I'm sure Kirsten has a lot to say here, given what she's building. But I would say one thing that I think will be useful is like having an employer's reputation kind of more public and on-chain. That will also open the opportunity for like employer branding, on-chain employer branding almost. So being a lot more open about how do you feel when working for a company, and being much more visible and transparent, and that helping your process of choosing who to work for. And I think, yeah, that will force employers to actually do the right thing, because otherwise everyone will see it.
I think we're going to continue to see the evolution of remote workforce and what that means. My hope is we're going to see even more diversity on all levels because of that. I think you are going to see the internal structure of organizations being much more like DAOs and be very, very community kind of structured. That's very fascinating. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like right now, but I do think that that's where we're going to see things going, and it's definitely what we're kind of ideating around now and seeing what that means. So yeah, I think that will keep growing, and what will be interesting is we will get more experience on the talent side in the marketplace, and so you'll also see a shift in terms of how you're going out to attract talent, because obviously you're going to have like more experience there. We all have a big responsibility in making sure that we're building the external marketplace as well and educating people.
So I think that the biggest shift that blockchain is bringing to hiring is people will be able to get hired not based on who you are and who you know, but rather based on what you have done and what you are doing. And this is something that comes from just the fact that this information is on-chain, and things like on-chain attestations from previous employers, and having that be something that's transparent. Because the reason that we have such like unintended, like sometimes bias is intended, but a lot of the time it's unintended. The reason we have so much unintended bias in hiring based on things like where you went to university, or what you look like, or like who you got an introduction from, is because these are heuristics. So these are me as an employer trying to figure out the best I can I trust you, without having really seen your prior work. And this is really dangerous, because it leads to things like you hire someone and they actually don't do well. And also, you not hire someone because you accidentally discriminated based on this or this or that. So if we have the ability to reference data that is verifiable, then all of a sudden, like, that becomes the best heuristic we have. Like, this is the thing where we know exactly what someone's output's going to be based on their prior outputs. So that's just going to be really, it's going to fuel equitability, and that's what I'm really excited for.
Amazing. And now we're looking for some of your words of wisdom and advice. And if you could give one piece of advice to HR professionals and entrepreneurs trying to navigate talent acquisition in Web3 space, what would it be?
I'll go first. Okay. I think my advice is a common one, which is always be hiring. So when you actually need to hire, it's the worst time for you to actually be hired, because you're under stress and pressure, and you will much more likely to fall into these biases. So always be hiring, and I think in Web3 this means always having some bounties open, so that you get an inflow of people coming in, applying for small things that they can keep doing. And also, I think more importantly, to make your onboarding process, like we were talking about, permissionless. So permissionless is a buzzword that we talk about a lot, but it doesn't have to be a technical thing or about smart contracts. It's just about making it possible for people to figure it out for themselves. So if you're onboarding, if they can do the onboarding on their own whenever they want it, it's much easier than you having to do when you select the people. So they'll come to you, they've done bounties for you, they're already self-onboarded, so it's much easier to hire when you have these pool of people to choose from.
I think this is a book, but I love this saying, what got you here is not what's going to get you there. And that is really what everybody, like whether it be in HR, management in companies, need to get their head around. I think you have to mirror the principles of Web3. You have to build trust. You have to build communities. You have to lead with transparency. And these cannot just be words you say. You actually have to back them up with actions. And you have to understand the talent that is in the space, what motivates them, how they're going to grow, and you have to build your practices around that. But I cannot stress enough, the way things have been done before, it's going to be different. And if you're not prepared to change, then I think that you're going to have a really hard time.
So my answer is a sort of a fusion of both of your answers. So completely retweet everything that Felipe said. Amazing. I also agree that things need to be done differently from how traditional hiring has happened. But I also think that there's a lot of really good examples out there that we have over like the open source projects that have existed over the past decades. Because like open source technology, these decentralized working communities isn't something that's new necessarily. So there's plenty of like really old school projects like Linux, for example, that are just amazing case studies of how to like take something from a concept to a massive ecosystem with even things like enterprise adoption. So learn history, read the history books.
Amazing. And we actually had time to get to my bonus question, guys. We have to talk about AI right now. And how can AI technically, revolutionize the job search, application, and onboarding process for your organizations within Web3? And are you actively establishing AI systems within your organizations?
So I would say biggest like help that AI can have is matching. So basically what we're doing as hirers is we're trying to cast as wide of the net as possible, trying to find as many people as possible. We can only physically review so many applications, so many backgrounds. So especially when we have like a lot of on-chain records of people's work history, put an AI on top of that, and then it can digest all that information and spit out really high-quality recommendations for where people should work and who you should hire. So I think that's the most powerful part.
And just adding to that, I think it can even help us not fall into our human biases. Although it can introduce some AI biases that we don't know about yet, but I think will probably be better than our own.
I think we're just starting to scratch the surface on what it will mean in terms of like an HR side of thing or talents. I think that'll be interesting to see how that evolves. I'm really excited about it. I mean, I love technology, and I think for me, the space that we're in right now around it in terms of sort of like a company perspective, and I mean like all companies, is understanding what it means for your company and educating people. I think we're in the education phase from a company perspective, and just helping people like understand how they can use it so that we can then explore where you're going to be utilizing it across companies. But I do think it will become really prevalent in the talent acquisition space for sure.
Amazing. And I just want to do a final comment there in terms of, we spoke about it earlier in terms of diversity, but how focused is the Web3 space on inclusivity, diversity and equality for everyone in the space, and how focused are your organizations on achieving that for the wider goal?
So that's two questions there. How focused do I think the Web3 community space is? Not as much as I'd like, to be honest. I think sometimes it's a little bit trailing, and I think when you're in an emerging space, there's other kind of focuses and priorities. So I don't mean that in a bad way, but I don't think it's at the forefront of the conversation, would be my opinion. In terms of companies and what they're doing, I mean, like I said, I think the very nature of how we're working, where we're working, when we're working is actually going to be amazing in terms of attracting lots and lots of diversity into the space. And I think that it is a responsibility of companies to make sure they've got the right mechanisms and supports in place to be able to bring that talent in. And also to promote the benefits of working in Web3. So anyway, I'm not saying that Web3 is not like diverse, but I just don't think it's part of the major conversation at the moment.
I would completely agree on like the state of Web3. I also think it depends on like what sub area of the blockchain sector we're talking about. Like DeFi, my God, most teams are doing a horrible job. But then like, you know, moving into the NFT space, I think we have like way more women involved in this sector, which is really, really cool. As far as like, you know, what we can be doing, I think that there's sort of like active ways of helping with diversity and also passive ways. So passive would be, you know, just the fact that you are able to get hired without disclosing all your personal information. You're able to get hired in a flexible work environment. I mean, this in itself does mean that it's easier to get involved and easier for you to like just not have some of the worries about biases and stuff like that. And then on the other side, there's active, which is like you're literally going out there to events and like with specific targeted campaigns to get people of certain types involved. I think that organizations need to be doing both. For us, like we're so small, like and like you said, like when you're small, when an organization ecosystem is like really young, there do seem to be other priorities. So right now, I will unfortunately say we're more so just doing the passive stuff as opposed to a lot of the active stuff, but we hope to be able to do that soon.
I just want to reinforce, I think, two things we said here that can help with diversity. I think the first is that idea of funding the community instead of hiring employees, because this will mostly be based on past contributions and merit and not on the other biases that we have. And the other one that you mentioned is also the fact that a lot of companies in DAOs pay people in crypto on-chain. It means that what they're paying is transparent, which will mean more equal pay to everyone, no matter where you are or what's your gender or anything else.
And just like to say that we were always going to go over time, so apologies to everybody, but could we please get a round of applause for Kirsten, Amanda, and Philippe? I just want to say a massive thank you to Manu, the ETHBarcelona team, from the engineers at the back, the sound guys, the lighting, the day-to-day work they're doing. Shagan as an example, coordinating. Everybody here has created this event, and obviously a big thank you to all you guys. John, the MC of the most. I mean, this guy's got a comedy club, right? I mean, go down and check his comedy out. Just everybody here, just so much love for you all. So round of applause to all of you.
Nice one, man. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Guys, give it up for James, yeah? Thank you, guys. Yeah, fuck it. I have a comedy club. Come hang out. If you are looking to blow off some steam tonight, we've got 2 shows. We've got a show at 8 p.m. We've got this group called Fluke that do improv comedy. They've got like 1 million followers on TikTok. They're pretty famous. And we actually have a visiting comedian in town called Brad Morris. I don't know if you guys have seen The Good Place. He did that, and he's done like a bunch of TV and stuff like that. So he's in town this weekend. So we've got a show at 8 p.m. We've got a show at 10 p.m. And if you're not sick of me after this conference, which is pretty hopeful, but if you're not sick of me after this conference, I have a show tomorrow at 7 p.m. as well, where I just try out a bunch of jokes. Actually, it's called Show Up, Go Up. So anyone that shows up could go up. So James, if you want to come in and tell some jokes, you would be super, super welcome to do that. Thanks for the plug. I really appreciate it. Thanks for giving me a convenient segue. Very, very kind. Guys, we have two more things happening before we sort of break for a long lunch and then come back for the hackathon later on in the day. So very shortly we have a talk on creating a new front end for Web3 using AI. Guys, if you do want to connect to the chat room, feel free to scan the QR code. You can ask questions for the talks in the chat room, or maybe someone will come around with a microphone afterwards. So we have this speech coming up now, and then at 12:55 we have another panel on Web3 wallet evolution. So ladies and gentlemen, on creating a new front end for Web3 using AI, please put your hands together for... Yeah? Put your hands together for Ian W.
Yeah, for sure. Beginning.
Is it the end?
Beginning.
The beginning, okay.
Beginning. Cool. Perfect. Cool. Hey everybody, I'm Ian. So today I'm just talking a bit about demystifying AI and what we can actually use that for in the Web3 space. So I've been working on Bitcoin and Ethereum the past 10 or 11 years. And I just want to kind of walk through a vision we have on how we can actually make Web3 more usable and onboard the next billion users, and make it simplified for just the mainstream audience that's not crypto native like most of us in here. So a quick evolution of how the internet has just evolved and become more user-friendly over the years. In the 1960s, it was just getting going, and for about 20, 30 years, it was just on command line. It was hardcore coders. It was just difficult to use for the average person. Then in the 90s, we started getting simple graphical interfaces. It kind of opened up the doors to the average person a bit. And then, about 20 years later, 15, mobile phones came out. Mobile apps then brought it into the emerging markets, kind of everywhere. So you have this kind of like user experience journey over the past few decades. And then everything started speeding up really quickly with the birth of Bitcoin and then Ethereum and smart contracts. We kind of disrupted the whole back-end infrastructure for the internet. And the problem with that was that kind of these Web 2 front ends that we all build are really complex. We can all build Solidity in like a weekend, something really cool. But then piecing that together to operate a front end is a pain in the ass for everybody. So what we've seen now, and over the past, since Ethereum came out, there's been tons of innovation across that. Different chains, different everything. But we still run into this issue where a traditional Web 2 interface just doesn't really fit into Web 3. And browser wallets and all of that have made it really complicated for the average user to get onboarded. If you even take it a step further, even if somebody figures out how to do that, create their keys, it's still not really intuitive. So if you're like trying to do a Uniswap v3 position, even if you figure out how to do it, you're not understanding that for like 99%. So AI is kind of cool where we can do everything messaging based. So you can plug into like Telegram, Discord, really any messaging interface, and people can interact in natural language. So you can say, send 1 ETH to this person, swap on Uniswap. And for an average user that's not a hardcore crypto person, that makes it actually achievable and accessible and easy. The other side of that is we have kind of like this information overload in the space. So if any of you are part of like DAOs in different communities, it's really impossible to keep up with more than like 3 or 4 of them, and you start getting this like DAO fatigue. So everything's kind of like fragmented on information side across Discord, Twitter, forums, Telegram groups, and you just can't keep up to date with everything. And all of these protocols are designed to be decentralized. So you need to be hands-on, active voting, and kind of staying up on that. And that's just become really impossible. So AI kind of lets you do this right in messaging, where it's not just using smart contracts and interacting with them, but it's also staying on top of information. And it also has like built-in learning into it. So I'll show you a video in a second. But if you're having issues like swapping on Uniswap, or you're not really understanding what's going on, right now you're kind of going into Discord and you're asking, how do I do this? Please explain it to me. And when you can just ask that and say, how does Uniswap work? And your AI is kind of just explaining all of that to you, it's pretty cool. So somebody's going to build the equivalent of like ChatGPT, but for crypto. What they disrupted search, somebody's going to do that for Web3. And I think that's what kind of like onboards people in a huge, huge way. So the kind of like goal is just to like aggregate everything into one location that's easy to use, easy to navigate, and is just extremely intuitive. It's kind of what you've seen with OpenAI and plugins and kind of like streamlining that. It's still at the beginning. But I think in the crypto space, that's what gets everybody who's not in this room into it. And that's something that like I've been passionate about my whole life. So here's like a quick video of how it could work. Sorry for the show, but I'll let you watch it. And this is just right in Telegram, but it's really easy to plug this into like any messaging thing that you want. And there's always been this kind of issue where when you're trying to connect like a Web 2 application, you'd worry about like key security and how do I do that? Because you're kind of like hybrid, like centralizing and decentralizing, right? Because we're running on Telegram, you can't have private keys or your crypto on there, it's not safe. So an easy way to do that is on Telegram, you can actually, or anything, you can generate kind of an unsigned transaction, which will then get pushed to your mobile wallet, like MetaMask, Rainbow, whatever. And that lets you sign it, kind of similar to how like a banking verification works, where if you're doing an online purchase, you have to verify it. So that way you can keep your keys stored locally, secured, and you can still interact in this kind of way. So just for like an average person, this is easy because it makes it more like mobile payments, right? Like everybody says that crypto is hard to use because of the addresses, but like IBANs and banking information is equally as difficult. So you had this kind of birth of all these mobile payments applications that really brought, just micropayments and instant payments and peer-to-peer stuff to like the entire world. And this is something that could actually do that in crypto. And the other side of it too is learning, because education is the hardest part. And when I actually started really paying attention to AI, because over the years it's really just been a lot of noise and buzzwords, it was cool on the learning side of things. So I was trying to learn zero knowledge stuff, and it was took me 6 months. I barely understood any of it. And a weekend with ChatGPT and 4 hours, I understood almost all of it. So I was like, if that can do that for me, imagine what that can do for everybody out there that it's like your personal tutor that guides you through crypto and makes you understand it. I have a lot of friends who aren't in the crypto space that are always saying, I hate banks, I want to make money off this, this whole system's kind of a scam. But they have a negative connotation of crypto just because of the media, and there's nobody really there to educate them in the masses, right? You can only sit down with so many people at a time and teach them and guide them through. So that just makes it kind of more comfortable. And the whole way to make this kind of thing work is you want to make sure that it's done in an open framework where everybody can build and contribute to this messaging thing, following on principles of similar to Ethereum. And that way you don't have an open AI kind of just aggregating everything and eating it. So that's what I'm pushing forward and would love more people to contribute to, and feel free to ask questions if you have any. Because it kind of takes everybody to do it, and there's a lot of cool things you can build with it. And like I was saying, we're doing stuff at the hackathon, so it's just the front end has always been the bottleneck on the developer side, and this is a really simple way to plug in and actually get it testing. And that's basically the presentation, short and simple. So I wanted to open it up for questions if anybody had it, or if you wanted me to expand on any specific points of it. Sure. Are there any mics?
Thank you. I completely agree with your vision, but the implementation that they are using a third-party chat app and then potentially have another wallet and have to connect the two, doesn't that in fact exclude the 99%? That wouldn't it be better if you just went straight that we have a dedicated app that does it all within the app?
You can, for sure. And that's probably the long-term goal, is something like that. Or doing stuff with social recovery, because it's not just, the hardest part is kind of generating the seeds for people. And right now, from every implementation of this I've seen, you're just playing it safe, because when you're doing anything in messaging or third-party apps, you don't want to trust them with your keys. So that was kind of a step to prove it and see if it works. And then I think at the end, especially with AI models, they're all going to run probably within the next 2 years locally on your phone. And when that happens, then it's really easy to generate keys locally. And don't know if that will be through an own app is easy. But then you also have that user experience problem of you have to download a new app. So I would love to just push it through messaging if it's possible, because it's streamlined. There's no downloads, there's no account signups. You just message a bot in Telegram or Discord or whatever, and it's there. Is that cool?
I don't know if you're the technical guy, but what kind of components are you using to build also? In terms of existing AI tooling, you can
basically it's with this specifically, it's a framework. So it'll plug into multiple different language models and kind of route them for the best things. So most things are just using ChatGPT and throwing up a front end. So there's not really any good Web3 tools or any LLMs, which are the language models for AI. So I think there's the future, there'll be many different ones. And with us, at least, we're just routing it through the most appropriate based on keywords. And that's on the AI front of it. Does that answer it?
You plug in that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, vote.
Do you use the LangChain library? And which other libraries that?
We definitely have played with LangChain. I don't know the specific libraries, to be honest. I can hear you. So he asked if we're using OpenAI or not. On this, we're using it a bit for education while we build out the models. So yes, to an extent, for certain things. It'll route through like generalized queries that don't fit into anything that we have built. So it's kind of like the fallback. But over time, the goal is to kind of like diminish away from that and have more people build models and contribute to it on that side. And a cool thing that somebody was bringing up to me was actually using like subgraphs to pull all the data to build models out. And there might be some teams working on that, but that was like really interesting to me as well. So like all the data is there on chain and easy and aggregated. And yeah, I think many people can build models, either a general purpose one like OpenAI, or they can do like really niche specific ones that are like hardcore towards specific like use cases, like trading, research, whatever. The sky's kind of the limit with it. And to me, it kind of just reminds me of like the early days of ETH, where everybody was just deploying, building all sorts of crazy shit. And we're kind of seeing that again in the space now in AI, and it's starting to merge together, and it's just really cool.
Hi. Just a question. Ideally, what would you like to see at infrastructural levels, so wallets and protocols, to make Web3 more usable in the coming years?
Wallets are the biggest bottleneck, like I was saying earlier, just generating seeds. So I think like it need a huge focus on kind of like a social recovery or something like that, where you don't have to necessarily write down all of your seeds. You still should, but you can securely generate them locally, share them encrypted. And that's still kind of, from everything I've seen, not super production ready. But there's a ton of people working on that. So I think like that's, at least on that side, would focus on it. On the actual like chain infrastructure, layer 2s are super important just for like payments, because like ZK Sync would probably be a good one, because Arbitrum has cheap payments, so you can do that. But then you also have that publicness, and that's kind of an issue when you're doing peer-to-peer payments, because like when you're buying coffee, you don't want somebody to see the balance of your bank account. So I think on the infrastructure side, at least to get the mobile payments and kind of some finance stuff like that down, it's just privacy on the transactions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Can you share a bit about the timeline? So a glimpse of a timeline.
Oh, I mean, this was specific to us, if you wanted to see it. So basically, with this, it's super early stage. We've been working on it just maybe a month maximum. But we're starting to roll out like an invite-only alpha. It's like, very basic, just to test it out, get a lot of feedback. So don't expect like anything crazy off of it. And then tomorrow at the hackathon, we'll be opening it up so people can start building and integrating communities for DAOs and getting like aggregating, from Twitter, from Discord, just so you can stay up to date on projects. And then we'll push out like Snapshot for voting, so you can actually, get up to speed on everything, and then vote and participate in governance. And timeline-wise on that, it's probably be around, give it 2 or 3 months. September, we'll open it up in a public beta and open up the API to everybody, just so they can start building and just kind of get the community to take it over. That's the plan. We never know, but.
And could it be offered to wallets as a service, so that wallet builders still capture the user?
It totally can be. So right now we're just basically using Wallet Connect. It's a very like streamlined, simple thing. But yeah, on the wallet side, definitely. Good. Thanks, guys.
Nice, Ian, everybody. Yeah. Cool. Guys, we got 5 minutes until the next panel. We've got a panel coming up on Web3 wallet evolution. And that's going to be our final panel before we break for lunch and everything like that. Got a couple of jokes. Listen to them if you want. When I was a kid, I used to be really afraid of losing a limb, like an arm or a leg. I thought it'd be real bad to lose a limb, right? But then recently I realized if you lose your left leg, your right leg is left. So you'll be all right. Nah, well, it's fine. It's fine. You guys probably don't believe this about me, but I'm very, very good at accounting. Yeah, my accountant tells me all my invoices are outstanding. Pretty good. Pretty good. How do you get a Bored Ape holder's private key? Ask him for it. No? I heard Bored Ape holders were like giving away their private keys super easily and stuff. I don't know. Is that true? Do you know that? Not sure. That'll do. That'll do, I think. Does anyone else want to have their mind blown? Have you had your mind blown yet? Have you seen this? Oh, dude, this is amazing. This is great. This is my magic trick that I'm using. This is a pretty impressive cube. This cube is, the thing that it does is that it's heavier than it looks like it would be. Okay, so what's your name? Danielle. I want you to imagine in your head how heavy you think this cube would be. Have you got it? Okay, now hold out your hand. It's heavier than you thought it was going to be, right? A little bit heavier than you thought it was going to be. And what's amazing, guys, is that I'm telling you that it's heavier than you think it's going to be. But even when you're adjusting for it, it's still even heavier than you're expecting that it's going to be. Okay, you're going to imagine how heavy you think it's going to be? Even heavier than you thought it was going to be, right? It's quite a lot heavier than you would imagine. I think it's because I have such strong fingers that I like hold it in a way that makes it look quite light, but it's actually quite heavy. Did you have a go with this already? All right, you ready? I don't know if one hand's going to be enough, but okay. Heavier than you thought? Do you want to have a go with the cube? Yeah, that's a good point. It's too risky. It's heavier than you thought, right? It's heavier than you thought. Cool, I think I've basically squeezed everything I can squeeze out of this cube for this conference. Just in time for our final panel. I think we're good on, we've got it all set up and everything. Paula? Yeah, cool. So guys, we have a final panel before lunch. It's on Web3 wallet evolution. Please welcome your moderator, Shagun Kaki, and we have Evgeny Yurtov, Pedro Gomez, and Isaac Rodriguez. Clap it up, everybody.
Hello. GM everyone, thank you all for being here. My name is Shagun and I'm the founder of a PR agency for emerging tech. And it's a pleasure to share the stage with the people behind some of the most impressive crypto wallet projects. And yeah, we're going to discuss all things about crypto wallets, how they've evolved over time, the security, privacy concerns facing around them, and all the issues surrounding them. So why don't we just do a brief intro, and then we can move ahead with the discussion.
Sure. Is this? Oh, hello everybody. Excited to be here. I'm Evgeny. I'm a founder and CEO of Zerion. Zerion has been on the market for a while. Most of you probably know it as a DeFi aggregator, but about a year ago, we've actually pivoted into, actually not expanded to become a wallet. So we're now one of the biggest challengers for MetaMask. So if you haven't tried Zerion, I encourage you to go and check it out so you'd see the difference instantly.
Hey all, I'm Isaac. I'm the co-founder of Dawn. Dawn is a self-custodial wallet that is focused on making it seamless to use dApps on the phone. We first launched a Safari extension recently, so you can just interact and sign any dApp straight from Safari. It's an honor to be here. I'm from Barcelona. I've been on the Ethereum ecosystem since 2017, but it was not until I moved from Barcelona to San Francisco that I started working on wallets. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Hi, I'm Pedro, founder and CEO of Wallet Connect. If you guys don't know, Wallet Connect is actually not a wallet, but it enables wallets to connect to dApps remotely. So we focused first on mobile to desktop and expanded to mobile, and now pretty much every wallet uses our protocol. And Wallet Connect Cloud is the infrastructure layer that enables multiple services as Wallet Connect, also domain verification, blockchain API access, and essentially building SDKs for dApps.
Awesome. So we'll dive right in, and my first question to you, Evgeny. As crypto wallets have evolved over time, what are the key technological advancements that have contributed to the scalability and also the usability of this?
Definitely. This is, I would say, a very, that's the right question, first of all. So there were a lot of things that changed over the time, but I think what contributed to the shift in how people perceive the wallets was the expansion of the number of things people can do within their wallet. So it started off by just having a few tokens in your wallet, but as dApps started to become more and more useful, I think wallets had to adapt. So a lot of the UX that changed around the wallets was to support more, an ever-growing list of use cases that people experience within their wallet. So now I think what happened is wallets became kind of like a center of your Web3 journey. So you start with the wallet, you sign transactions with your wallet, and everything related to each part of this user journey has changed pretty much drastically over the last maybe 4 years or so.
Got it. And Pedro, you mentioned when you said your intro that Wallet Connect is not actually a wallet. So I want to ask you, what are some wallet types? There are different types of wallets, and what are the unique benefits that they bring, and what considerations should users keep in mind when navigating this or wanting to use?
Yeah, so basically wallets can be categorized into 4 platforms. You have hardware wallets, you have mobile wallets, desktop wallets, and then you have a special category of cloud wallets. These cloud wallets can be custodial or can even rely on technologies like MPC. And that essentially focuses on the platform that are actually managing your keys, but also how they manage their keys. But then on top of that, you have to actually take into account the account management. So you will have your normal wallets that have no special features and are basically just a key signing for transactions. And then you have your smart accounts, which sometimes people call it smart contract accounts. And that will be when you actually deploy a smart contract to actually manage your account. And then it's a combination between which platform do you want to use and which type of accounts that will essentially will allow you to find the best wallets for you.
Awesome. And crypto wallets are, have this reputation that it's like a do-it-yourself, more secure kind of wallet. But also there are some, challenges. There are hacks, and we hear things of wallets getting hacked also. So I want to ask you, Isaac, what are some of the recent advancements in wallet security, and what challenges remain in ensuring the protection of users' digital assets?
Sure. So the crypto actually the crypto wallet need to face this in 2 different branches. So the first one is how do you protect the private key? Actually, there is no malicious actor that can extract the private key from your device. And secondly is how do you present the data to the user that can actually know the context of what they are going to sign before actually signing it. So on the first part, you need to actually make sure that no one can extract the private key from your device, right? So there is some techniques that you can implement, like biometrics, or actually preventing that your private key gets leaked on memory. It's more technical, but you need to make sure that no one can have access to the private key. And secondly, you need to simulate the transaction, because for example, Uniswap, you actually sign to a message and a transaction. So how do you know, how the user know that they are actually signing an approve? allowance, right? So before that, you need to show the user the whole context. So they actually sign what they want to sign.
And Evgeny and Pedro, feel free to add, what you feel about wallet security.
Let me go. So first, I definitely agree with Isaac. So there are two crucial security considerations, so account management and transaction signing. So I think it's a little easier on the transaction signing side. So for example, we at Zerion, we do transaction simulation to basically ensure that every transaction that you sign is basically what you intended to do. And I think this could be taken even further. So there's phishing protection, there's emulation of what actually happens to match whether the DApp is legitimate versus what you're signing. On the key management side, I think I definitely agree with Pedro. So smart accounts are one of the, it's, I think, a component to the future of a more secure interacting with blockchains, because we still want to have self-custody for the keys, because that's the defining criteria for, like, I would say, for a success of a wallet. But at the same time, we want to provide recovery and without, and basically gasless transactions. So these are two big UX challenges that users are faced with. So smart accounts together with MPC would allow to solve both of these things, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I would just add that gasless transactions is extremely important because users are too caught up with the technical aspects of the blockchain. So we now have the infrastructure to actually solve this. And people have been talking about how MEV can be redistributed to users to incentivize more usage, but I actually don't think that's a good idea. Like, honestly, they kind of just don't want to pay for gas. Like, just use the MEV to not pay for gas. And now wallets have actual business model. They can just take a spread from the MEV and the gas, and they actually have a profit, and the users don't have to pay for gas.
Yeah, on that, Evgeny, we had a chat a little bit before this panel, and you asked me to ask you about a very important topic, that is monetization for crypto wallets. So I want to ask you, like, how can crypto wallet providers effectively monetize their services, and what are some different ways to do it?
Thank you. And this is a little bit of a response, I guess, to Pedro. We did some evaluation on basically whether wallets could monetize MEV, but at the time of us doing this evaluation, this is still, you need to be a certain size of a wallet, and there are actually not too many that are able to successfully monetize from that. I think the current somewhat working monetization path is basically the swap fees, and pretty much every wallet has this. But I honestly don't feel this is a great idea long term, because trading is only one of the use cases for wallets. So for example, in Zerion, more than half of the transactions are now done on dApps. So people are just using different things rather than just trading. And over time, it creates a wrong incentive. So if we're incentivizing trading to basically earn more money, then we're becoming more like a Robinhood type of application, whether, in my view, wallets should actually become more like browsers, where you connect to different use cases. So this all leads us to basically, we're trying to find ways to monetize on basically aligning with the user. So whenever a user makes a transaction, there should be a payment, no matter what kind of transaction that is. So that's our current take. And MV is only part connected to trading as well. So we're trying to find what's the balance, basically.
I'm also curious to know what Pedro and Isaac think about this.
Yeah, definitely MEV, you are subtracting value from the user, right? So it's not good from the ecosystem that you are actually monetizing out of your users. And ultimately, it's also maybe potentially subscription, right? So wallets ends up offering extra features if you actually subscribe to the wallet. Or even potentially insurance, right? You're insuring the user, and you can offer that. Yep.
I actually think the best analogy for wallets is how data providers work today. So everyone has a SIM card, and you have a plan, and you have an amount of gigabytes that you could use. And in some countries, people actually thought that it was not very good for net neutrality for some ISPs to essentially subsidize data for certain applications. But I actually think this is how wallets actually going to go, where, for example, maybe Uniswap wants to partner with Dawn, and for every transaction, users don't actually pay for gas, so that doesn't get deducted for their subscription. Or maybe OpenSea does a partnership with Zerion, and now every time you sell an NFT, that doesn't get deducted on your gas balance. So all of the users would like pay a monthly fee to use these wallets, which would account for maybe like, oh, you can do X amount of transactions per month. But if you use one of our partners, doesn't actually count for your amount of transactions per month. So, you know, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We just have to kind of be a little bit more aggressive. But because Web3 is so new, charging is actually going to kill adoption. So we kind of have to wait until it grows big enough.
I definitely agree. So we are actually piloting the premium subscription, basically. It's going to launch in, like, I would say this quarter, actually. Yeah, this is very interesting. There, like, the challenges right now is how do we charge the user effectively for the subscription. But outside of that, I think that's the most fair way to monetize if users are willing to pay for extra security, extra data in the wallet. Yeah.
I guess you could just use like the same way people top up their cards in the SIM card, you know, just top it up so next month it doesn't stop running out of like data.
That would be cool, but I think for that we need first to move to smart accounts, and that's a challenge in and of itself.
I think that's like the conclusion of this talk. It's going to be like, if you're not a smart account, there's no Web3 wallet evolution.
But like one thing I'm also personally curious about, because there are quite a few wallets as well in the space. So do you think like more wallets are going to like go down the road of finding like other monetization aspects, and how is it going to affect like the overall like wallet ecosystem? So I mean, Pedro, you shared an interesting view that you think that it's going to happen, but like a little bit later. So yeah, how do you feel like more wallets are going to take this route? Like, how is it going to affect?
I don't know the answer right away, I think. Looking at big wallets, I think they're doing just fine. Like MetaMask is earning, you know, I think it's close to 100 million in the last 2 years. Yeah, they're just basically monetizing the users who don't know that they can go outside of MetaMask and swap, or they're just farming for airdrop. So this seems a little impossible for other wallets. So we definitely need to find like a industry consensus of how wallets are monetized and who is paying for that. Yeah, but I don't think like, so far, for instance, there were some attempts at tokenizing the wallet, and that was not very successful. And I can see why.
So right now it's like still in the experiment like phase.
I mean, I think Web3 technology is very special, but we're not. And I'm really sorry to disappoint you, but we're just repeating the dot-com boom all over again. You know, let's not rush to build the pets.com, which was like the first pet store online, and then it just died. It was $1 billion business on paper that never went anywhere. So it's all going to be about who can survive until we actually have adoption. And there's going to be a lot of pivots. Some wallets might become infrastructure providers. Some wallets might actually just do full customer experience for the apps, you know. Doesn't mean all wallets are going to survive, but they all have to find their niche or what they do best. So good luck for you guys.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with them. Ultimately, we should all find, because there is like, quality is a crowded space, and ultimately, the winning wallet is going to have like the leading role on all of that.
Got it. And another key thing about wallets is also, you know, the user experience, which is like a crucial, especially for mainstream adoption as well. How have crypto wallets simplified the onboarding process and bettered user interfaces to make it more accessible to wider audiences? All three of you can share your views on this.
Honestly, there's a company that's been trying to do this for a long time called LinkDrop. And basically, they tried to create almost like a pre-wallet, so people could essentially gift other people assets like NFTs and tokens before they even have a wallet. That's by far the best onboarding solution, but we don't have smart accounts yet. So it really doesn't really play along nicely with like normal accounts. And I think they're they were very early with the idea, and I think that's essentially how every wallet's going to onboard. They're going to turn into a smart account. You'll be able to deposit some assets, let's say NFTs and tokens, or maybe an ENS name, and then that will actually incentivize people to actually create the wallet. And with smart accounts, you can actually do this really interesting thing where the account exists before it's even deployed. So you can essentially associate an asset with a pre-wallet, and then they actually, once onboarded, you can actually justify deploying the smart contract for them. So once we actually get to that stage, onboarding is going to just explode. And I think normal accounts is really slowing us down right now.
Well, this may be a like, controversial take, but I will say it's much easier to just import your EOA than deploying a smart contract. Right now, it's like if you end up like deploying a smart contract, it might cost $20 on mainnet, and if you on the feature which I believe is like cross-chain, then you will need to deploy the wallet on all these chains. So currently, I don't see it. Like I see like much easier just starting with the EOA than actually going through the path of a smart contract in terms of like onboarding. And also I will say like the smart contract sets a feature parity with the centralized exchanges. So it's not like you are like improving the UX compared to the centralized exchanges. You are just setting like a parity with them. So actually you will need like some use cases that will drive this next adoption of the next billion on Web3.
I think I agree in some part with both of you. So as a wallet in this market, so smart accounts are not really feasible at the moment because they have, basically we can look at the Argent example. So that's a smart account from like 5 years ago. And basically they were all faced with, and other attempts faced with an issue of gas. It just became unbearable, and deploying a smart contract wallet is expensive. Also has a limit at where you can go with the smart account, because you need to have an account on every different chain. So if you want to interact with Optimism, Arbitrum, where the transactions are cheaper, you need to have a deployment across all of them. So that becomes a little bit of a messy user experience as you progress towards in your Web3 journey. So EOAs are still holding some advantage. They do have the problem of recovery and disability to make gasless transactions. So I think we would have to have a little bit of a push on the smart accounts first, before maybe like integrate it more natively into the protocols, maybe making these operations cheaper. All of that together can get us to like basically parity with EOA in terms of where it can, where users could go with the smart account. And afterwards, I think we'll have like smart accounts everywhere. That's the take.
No, I agree. I think what has happened in the past is like teams like Safe and Argent essentially built their own smart accounts, and there was a lot of like miscoordination. And now with this 48, well, I actually forgot the name, 4337, it started this movement where all the smart accounts started collaborating and actually writing one standard for them all. And Wallet Connect actually is compatible with 244 wallets. And this is the biggest problem that I always face, is like I get feedback from the wallets and then I just realize, actually, if you guys just work together, this would have been much faster, you know? So smart accounts could have actually progressed a lot easier if people actually have collaborated in the past. So 4337 might be the start of a lot of collaboration, and we're already seeing an explosion of smart accounts thanks to that. So I think it will get much faster in terms of progress because of this standardization.
What kind of like collaborations do you also see it like facilitate?
I mean, the good thing about collaboration is that you end up having like more resource efficiency. If you think about Argent and Safe, they were one of the first smart account wallets, but they also had to have their own infrastructure. They had to justify having gasless transactions. They had to justify transaction validation. They had to build all of that independently, and it was duplicating work. And now what's happening with 4337 is that wallets actually don't even need to run servers for this infrastructure. And now there's dedicated teams focused on the actual server side component of smart accounts, while the wallets can focus on the user experience. So that level of collaboration almost comes out of the modularity that standardization enables. So Zarian and Dawn, for example, can focus on building the best user experience and then just use an infrastructure provider that enables gasless transactions.
I mean, I agree. So I think we definitely benefit from standardization. Yeah, and I think that the effort that the whole industry is putting behind 4337 is good overall. So we might actually solve the challenges that other people face with smart accounts, yeah, sooner or later.
Awesome. And I want to go back a little bit back on security and privacy. And one of the major spaces in the space is DeFi, right? So I want to also ask you, what are the potential risks and security considerations associated specifically with interactions with DeFi through wallets? Maybe Isaac can share a little bit.
Sure. So yeah, basically a wallet is holding people's assets, right? So it's really important to put a lot of effort on that, right? So on DeFi especially, as I said earlier, like a user who faces the wallet needs to actually know what they are signing, right? That's why the simulation is the crucial part on all of that.
Yeah, would you like to share, Evgeny and Pedro as well?
I can comment on this because Zerion was historically a DeFi aggregator, so we've actually done a lot of work, basically useless work in retrospect, of bringing all the different DeFi protocols inside our own interface. And I think the reason why it was not widely successful is that there's a trust involved, and people don't want to see a reskinned version of Compound or Maker. So I think the state of the market we're in is that users still think in terms of applications rather than protocols, and that leads to them trusting the native experiences much more. So they would rather go to Uniswap directly than even swap on 1inch, even though 1inch is, for example, almost always or pretty much always better in terms of the rate. So I think we've kind of, basically these interactions within Ethereum, we've stripped them away and focused on what Isaac is saying is basically validating that the transaction that you're signing is what you intend to sign, and helping user make the correct choice. Help user make the choices that they intended to make, rather than, just sign something phishing.
Just trusting the other native ones.
Yes.
Is it because they have this bias, and is there anything that they should know about it that they're missing out on?
So if I understand correctly, you're saying about different opportunities that people can find in DeFi, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a little different. So what we've done is basically help user find the opportunities by, we have the perks section, and that's been pretty successful actually, because people they can instantly see what are they eligible for within the wallet, so they can know, for example, to claim an airdrop, or get some NFT that they can mint, or et cetera, et cetera. So that's discovering opportunities rather than actually providing this opportunity and surfacing these in the wallet, because that's more dangerous, and you cannot validate every single application or protocol.
Got it. And my next question is for anyone who wants to take this. What is the role of multi-sig wallets in institutional settings, such as for custody solutions or corporate accounts, and how they address the need for shared control and security among multiple stakeholders?
When we're talking about smart accounts, this functionality is already built in. I actually like focusing on the smart aspect of it because it essentially allows for a little bit more flexibility on how you actually handle transactions, how you actually handle recovery, but also how you actually handle keys. So having a smart account could be having multiple entities controlling an account, or it could be a single entity, like an individual, that just has keys in multiple devices. For example, having a key in your laptop and your phone, but controlling the same account would be really beneficial. But the same mechanism that you build to going mobile and desktop signing is the same thing as having, 3 people signing for a company. So I think all of the development that we're doing with smart accounts is going to be accelerated if we focus on individuals, and then it will translate into the multi-sigs. And most of the companies have been focusing on multi-sigs because they were in high demand, but actually the users actually needed this first, and maybe it's the lack of monetization that has been stopping that. but they're essentially the same thing. Smart accounts for like multiple entities, and the single entity is the same.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. Yeah. Also, you know, we chatted also about something very interesting, that is, as crypto adoption is growing, wallets are becoming a target for regulatory scrutiny. So how are wallets adapting to comply with regulation, and what are the trade-offs between privacy and regulatory compliance? And how is that different? You know, we talked a little bit about how that's different in different regions. So Evgeny, if you want to share something about it.
Yeah, so this is a pretty tough topic. So I think we're still missing clarity, in short, across the industry, and specifically for non-custodial wallets. I think it's been improving on the centralized side. So centralized crypto is now becoming more and more regulated. I think it's still very much a gray zone, and has the regulation varies across each country for non-custodial, self-custodial wallets. And I think the reason is primarily people still don't understand how exactly users are going to use wallets. So an example I like to give is, imagine you're using a wallet to trade, say, like binary options or do some kind of casino. Then that kind of activity is regulated in some countries for sure. And the question is, who's going to be responsible for that activity, for the KYCing of the user, whether that's the application or the wallet. Another example could be very harmless. So if users are just minting some kind of NFT, you don't really need to KYC them for that kind of transaction. So my feeling is that basically based on what you do in your wallet, it would require a different KYC level. So initial first operations with your wallet would definitely not require any KYC. Maybe it's going to evolve closer to become like a browser-like. So you don't KYC with a browser, you KYC with a specific application. So I think that's something similar, I believe, we're going to see in the crypto Web3 space.
Yeah, I also encourage to know your thoughts about what is happening right now with Coinbase Wallet. It's like SEC is claiming that Coinbase Wallet is offering securities, and then it's like you need to be a licensed broker to actually offer these securities. And as my understanding right now, it's not regulated, so it's a gray zone. It's like when Airbnb or Uber started, ultimately you will need to follow the guidance of these people. So yeah, I would like to know your thoughts in terms of what is happening right now with SEC.
We looked at basically different risks. I think right now, if we had clarity, like specific guidance, it would be much easier to follow. But now I think we just cannot do much. It's not worth doing, going 5 steps ahead of the time without any clarity, because otherwise we would just be wasting resource. So yeah, we'll see how this case turns out with Coinbase, and that's going to give us at least some measure.
I mean, I think that's also one of the friction points where people are still stuck in the normal accounts, right? Because with normal accounts, it's kind of black and white. The user is in control of the key and is self-sovereign. But then once you go into the smart accounts, you have a little bit more involvement from the wallets to actually deploy a smart contract, and then you have the transaction relayers that actually do the actual transaction submission. So because this completely changes of how traditional finance works to the new decentralized finance, the regulators haven't really adapted, and they're just going to try to apply the traditional patterns into these new patterns, and it's not going to be accurate. So once we actually see a good understanding of how smart accounts for account abstraction work, then we actually are going to see wallets not so fearful of getting attacked for actually doing some evolution on the wallet side.
I just want to quickly add. So I think the question becomes who will end up being regulated. So maybe actually the people who are processing certain transactions would require KYC, and who gets that, it's a different question. But I think it's not necessarily basically the wallets. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, and that would be a good outcome for the whole non-custodial space. But yeah, we'll see how the regulator thinks about that.
Yeah, in traditional finance, you have what's called a money transmitter license, where you're the facilitator of an actual financial transaction. So technically, the transaction relayers, or sometimes they're called paymasters or bundlers, they would actually be the ones that will likely get KYC. So then wallets might need to use a form of an aggregator where you have multiple options. So the user can actually use Zerion or Dawn wallet, but then actually see, oh, do I want to use this particular transaction relayer or another one? Because different jurisdictions might have different requirements.
And taking all this into consideration and also what we talked about previously, how do you anticipate wallets evolving to meet the changing needs and demands of users in the coming years?
I feel like this is like the answer is again smart accounts probably. So we've talked quite a lot about that, but I think we can draw back from Vitalik's recent post about the 3 transitions. So we haven't really talked about privacy, which is one of the also crucial points in I think wallet adoption overall, because you don't want to everybody know how much money you have at any point of time, and also like every time you sign a transaction, you should assume that's public. And I think once we kind of move away a little bit, at least from that, so we'll have some kind of privacy merged with social recovery and gasless transactions. I think these 3 pieces would help us to get better adoption. Yeah, that's just a summary of Vitalik's paper. But
So yeah, I will also add, like, I do believe in a second order effect that might emerge, like new use cases emerging through like this seamless connection between the dApp and the wallet. So if you are offering to the user, to the end user, like better connection with the dApp, maybe there will be new use cases that emerge out of that. Yeah.
I mean, I told you, like in the beginning, it's all going to be smart accounts. Like it's going to solve all the problems, but it does get its limitations. At the end of the day, wallets are a special type of applications on Ethereum and EVM chains. If Ethereum and EVM chains do not implement privacy-preserving technology, then there's nothing wallets can do. You know, wallets are limited to the extent of what Ethereum and EVM actually enables. So with the smart accounts, we are kind of like pushing the boundary of what you can do with wallets, but there's a limit to it. So we can give social recovery, we can give gasless transaction, we can give better account management, but we can't give privacy if EVM does not provide privacy.
Yeah, and in normal mobile wallets, like there's an integration of biometrics, fingerprints, and facial recognition. So what in Web3 wallets, what are the security implications and drawbacks of using biometrics or facial recognition, and how can wallets kind of strike a balance between convenience and security?
I will say it also depends on how the wallet implements that biometrics. So I saw some wallets that they implement in biometrics but can be hacked. Let's be honest. So the wallets needs to make sure that the biometrics gets implemented correctly. I mean, like your private key gets encrypted using the biometrics, not just a client that some attacker can just bypass this client-side check.
Why is it hard?
No, it's not hard. It's like then you need to use these techniques that we're using, like secure enclave. Like you encrypt on the OS system. You're not on the client-side system.
So I get this question a lot. Like when I built Wallet Connect, I basically said mobile wallets will win, and then people just kept saying, that's very unsafe. Mobile wallets are unsafe. Well, it's not really true. When you actually look at the evolution of operating systems on desktop and mobile, mobile is actually way more secure than your desktop. So if you have keys in a browser extension like MetaMask on desktop and you have keys on a mobile wallet, in the mobile wallet you actually have what's called sandboxing, where each application has access only to its information and there's no shared data between applications. But there are nuances of how you actually store this data, like Isaac was saying. When you actually have a key, you have essentially 2 patterns, which is key storage and key signing. You can store a key very securely and then just compromise the key in the moment you actually sign, which is what Isaac is talking about, how you actually implement the biometrics. When you access the key to then sign, you can actually compromise it in that very small span of time. It might be like 100 milliseconds or even 50 milliseconds, but you can lose your key in that moment. So it's really down to how good the wallet provider has implemented key management.
And I will also add, like with a smart contract, you can deploy with a key generated in a secure enclave, which technically converts your mobile wallet in a hardware wallet, because basically no one has access to this key generated in the secure enclave.
Can you also explain the concept of hot and cold wallets and discuss, like, can we discuss the advantages and disadvantages of each in terms of accessibility, convenience, and also security?
So it goes back to the key storage and signing, right? So ideally, you always store your key in a cold place. And by cold, it means that there is enough isolation of the software that nothing else that doesn't require signing will access this. So when you have a hardware wallet, they have what they call a secure element, which stores the key and also signs it. So the only thing that goes inside of the secure element is the actual message or transaction that needs to be signed. In your phone, we could actually achieve this, but the problem is that the average phone does actually use the same cryptographic curves as the Ethereum blockchain. So every time you sign, we have to remove the key from the secure element, sign it outside of the secure element, and going back into the storage. So this is why it's called a hot wallet, because there's a moment where it's hot, you know, where the key could be compromised because it's essentially accessible by multiple software. And this opens up to what's called a supply chain attack, where wallets are very complicated software. They might have thousands of dependencies, and dependencies just means like multiple software packages that are included in the same application. And there has been wallets, and you can go back, I'm not going to name the wallet, 3 months ago, where users lost their seed phrase because someone changed one dependency in the wallet, and it stole the keys of all of the users. And this supply chain attack was only possible because it's a hot wallet, right? So the key was extracted from the secure element into the actual application. In that split second, it was able to steal the seed phrase. And that's very unfortunate.
I agree. So I think we've been doing a lot with these concerns. So like we would have to, I mean, we're going through rounds and rounds of audits just to make sure that like we do it the best we can given the platform limitations. So yeah, I think we still have a long way to go. Ideally, we don't want to have all the funds sitting in one private key, because even if it's like one key is compromised, you're not losing everything. So that would be the best outcome, and I think that's like the future where we are headed. At the same time, protecting the private key as of right now, I think it's like a collaborative work between the platform capabilities and what we can do on our end to ensure that we're never, I don't know, sending the private keys to analytics or stuff like that, or like supply chain attack, not having too many dependencies that we cannot control, or at least like passing audits, fixing the version of the library such that we are not getting any unexpected code loaded into the application.
Yeah, I will also add, as you said, like right now the secure enclave on iOS doesn't support Ethereum's curve, right? But what we're doing, for example, is like we're leveraging that technology by encrypting the private key using a key generated there. So actually, no one has access, not even ourselves. So ultimately, the only one who might sign something is like you with your Face ID, your biometrics.
Right, and I come from a very mainstream background, so I'm always curious about this crypto wallet space. And right now, to me, from like an outsider's perspective, who's not very much involved in like the technical aspects of it, there are a lot of like crypto wallets in the space. I mean, from my perspective, but in this bear market, what does one have to do like to stand out? Like, what are some things that you think of that has to be there?
I'm personally very bullish with intents. So it's like abstracting away like how to do like an intent from actually executing it. For example, on Google, you type of like a receipt, right? But it provides you the end receipt. It doesn't provide the process. An example on that on this case, like I want to take out a loan, but I don't care on what chain, what protocol. So ultimately, you will extract away all of that.
I mean, I'm gonna be a buzzkiller. Like I already said, like there's nothing special about this. It's startups. If there's a bear market, don't die. Like that's pretty much the best advice I can give you. So you just have to be very quick on your feet. Like I think some wallets get too carried away with the latest trends. You know, first there was DeFi, then one was NFTs. Maybe the next one will be like social and gaming. So you just have to be really quick to adapt. You know, like just enable users to do what they love the most. And if they're just following whatever is the latest trend, you have to be very flexible and not like commit yourself too much, but also not commit yourself too little to a particular trend, so that you're not like caught up to be like, oh, you're the NFT wallet, and then nobody cares about NFTs, and now you're stuck in like the trend of 2021.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with what Pedro said. I think this is the trap that many people, many wallets find themselves in. So Zerion, we started with DeFi, but we quickly realized that it wouldn't stop at DeFi, and there are other things in life than trading and yield farming, and users are interested in that, and that's why we've been shifting towards a more abstracted UI, so you can access any kind of dApp. And our role is basically supporting the things that users really want to do. For example, like from the latest example, decentralized social media was in the rise, as well as like music NFTs as an example. So yeah, adapting basically your experience to what users need in this moment, I think is pretty much important, such that, you know, because like wallets have this quality of ossification over time. And if you look at MetaMask, it didn't really change over time as much. So they were right to they were one of the first. They kickstarted the whole, you know, Web3 and dApps usage in a way. But at the same time, they haven't adapted as much to the needs of the users recently. And I think this is the moment where some competition to MetaMask can actually shine. I think that this is what we see happening.
I think we're a little bit short of time, and I'm going to move over there to see if there are any questions. So we have a couple of questions here. What is your opinion on ERC 4337, account abstraction and token-bound accounts? If anyone.
I think we talked about it for like 20 minutes. It's fine.
Okay, the other one is, are any efforts on UX of human readable cross-wallet addressings?
I mean, there's some efforts regarding that. Actually, I will give props to Safe Wallet for doing that. They started adding prefixes to addresses like ETH double column address, poly double column address, and that kind of allowed you to understand that the specific address matched the chain. So having this kind of like multi-chain, cross-chain experience would be really convenient. And maybe in the future this will be adopted by more wallets, so it will be easier for people to kind of realize what chain they're talking to.
I would just add that an effort needed on the domain side, so something like ENS is, I think, the right, in a good position to basically take over that. So if you have like a single account that is being resolved to a certain chain that you need to send money to or interact with, I think that would be, you know, that's better than having like long addresses in general.
The other question is, can you explain pros and cons of MPC, EOA, and smart accounts?
I can give it
Just really quick.
Yeah, I can give it a shot. So I think MPC is very useful for recovery. So you can just split basically your private key into multiple shards, and you can basically have one share of the key sitting somewhere where you can verify in a different way that you're the person claiming to be. So in case you lose one of the shares, you can restore that through some third party without giving away the complete control over your account. At the same time, the limitation, as far as I understand right now, is that once you've created these shards, you cannot revoke them. So if you start losing your shards, then you would need to somehow re-encrypt the key, and this is where we're hitting the problem again. So the longer your key lives, the more chances are that more of the shards are compromised. And you cannot like rehash it because private key is already out there. So that's I think why we need to combine MPC with account abstraction, so we can always change the main owner of the smart account that is MPC.
The other question is, how unsafe is it to keep keys in the phone?
It's not. It's very safe. Use your phones, please.
Thank you.
The last one. How do we solve the poor UX from injection? Can you give a progress update or the new EIP 6963?
Thank you for that question. I'm writing that standard, and I'm very happy to share an update. So EIP 6963, for those that don't know, have you ever had the unfortunate event of installing 2 browser wallets at once, and then the dApp doesn't even know which one it's connecting to, and it just randomly picks one? That's a huge problem in Ethereum, and EIP 6963 solves that. And it will allow for better browser wallet discovery. And not only will allow for better browser wallet discovery, which means that any new wallet can just immediately be recognized with a new logo and name, but it will also allow for multiple wallets to be connected at once. So with EIP 6963, we're now currently going into the review stage. So after the review stage, I would say that like, maybe if we put some effort into it, 3 to 6 months, but Zerion already implemented it. So they actually already have it. So I don't know what you're waiting for. You have to implement it as well. So it's coming, it's coming.
Yeah, that's the last one, and we're also, the time is up, so this is the end of the last panel for the conference. Thank you so much for listening and all your amazing questions. Thank you to all the panelists. And yeah, have fun for the rest of the event.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Shagun.
Awesome. Give it up for these guys one more time, guys. We had Shagun, Evgeny, Pedro, and Isaac. Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much for hanging out, guys. Yeah, we're going to have a long break. There is some speeches going on at Moon Stage this afternoon, if you like. Otherwise, I'm going to be back around at 5:30 to do the hackathon stuff. So that's all going to be kicking off in the Luna Park area. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.